started. First thing is approval of the minute.
Yeah, there's 2 weeks of minutes.
Just wondering, do
Yeah.
we for the minutes that were, I think she said they were incomplete or something. Do do we want to wait until Madison completes them before we approve them, or do we want to approve them as is?
Um, I know Maddie mentioned that she hasn't had access to the audio yet. Maddie, I don't know if you will soon or if that's going to be possible. I think it's kind of what Maddie thinks.
Yeah. So I just talked to Fernando and Jessica. I guess they're having some issues with uploading it to YouTube. It kept getting taken down. So I think they're still trying to do it. So if you want to hold off on approving those to like able to get, the audio at least, we can do that. That's fine with me.
Yeah, I'm okay with waiting to see. I don't think we're on the time crunch for it.
Okay.
Just because I know there were some people who I mean, at least that I talked to, that wanted to like take a look at that meeting. So I think it would be smart if we don't upload partial minutes, just so people don't like think like not trying to have the whole meeting there or something like that, because that's not the case.
Minutes need to represent what actually happened. So you should table them until either they're able to be completed or there's a determination made that they can't be, at which point they should be amended to make a note that due to technical issues, there are no meeting minutes for the following discussion items, and just list the things that happened after the audio was lost.
So I recorded the last meeting that we have. It was 6 hours long, so it took me a while to like convert it to a video, but I'll send it over to you.
Oh, wait, that sounds fine.
Okay. Yeah, we can wait.
Okay.
Okay.
I know there's also minutes from.
Yeah, there's still minutes from the 10th.
Mhm. Did everyone get a chance to read them? Because I'm ready to approve if everyone's cool. I'm ready to motion. Yeah, I motion to approve the minutes from March 10th.
Does someone second?
I second.
Okay, Lalo approves. Brandon seconds. Okay, we're gonna go in order. Okay. Well, president doesn't have a vote. Internal vice president, yes. EVP. EVP. Okay, we're gonna skip. Gen Rep 1,
Yes.
Gen Rep 2,
Yes.
Gen Rep 3,
Yes.
AAC,
Yes.
AAC.
I said yeah. I don't know if you heard me.
I didn't hear you. CEC,
Yes.
CSC,
Yes.
CAC. Is CAC here?
I don't think Kalechi's here yet.
Okay. FAC,
Yes.
FSC is not here. SWC,
Yes.
He gets a proxy.
Oh yeah.
okay. Oh, okay. Transfer Rep, Isabel,
Oh yes. Sorry.
Shama.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. EVP, is EVP here? Okay, if not, with a 9-0 vote, the minutes are approved from March 10th, 2020. Okay, moving on. Approval of the agenda. Does anyone want to amend the agenda?
I'm gonna table the SAOC CRC budget reports.
Okay. Can
Oh,
you? Yes,
I got it.
strike it.
Damn it.
Thanks. You muted yourself, Naomi.
Damn it. Is the discussion item moved to the beginning?
Yes, it's after public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. I also want to strike travel grant and academic success referendum.
Got it.
Okay.
I got you, Kim. Don't worry.
Thank you. Does anyone
Strike
else?
SFS.
SFS. I'm gonna strike my officer report.
I'm also gonna strike my officer report.
Yeah, strike FAC and strike TGIF.
Okay.
Also, maybe capital contingency and contingency programming.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yep. And then FAC.
Could we add, I guess it would be, actually it'd probably have to be an action item vote, but we need to extend our Zoom sessions through the rest of our terms because we've only like approved to do Zoom sessions for this week and next week.
Do we have to motion for that then? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. Can someone motion that?
I motion.
Go ahead.
I motion to allow the USA Council to meet via Zoom through the rest of spring quarter 2020 due to the coronavirus pandemic.
Wait,
second.
you're okay.
Does someone second?
I second.
Wait. You're right. Hold on. Yeah. Dr. Geller brings up a good point. Do we have quorum? I know that Joanna was here earlier.
Joanna just said she's here.
Okay.
I think she's just muted right now.
Okay. Who was seconding the motion?
Me, Jonathan.
Okay. Brandon motions. Jonathan seconds. I will go down the list again. Okay. IVP. Yes.
Wait, are we motioning to add it to the agenda or?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Do we need? But do we need to?
Yeah. That's my
Yeah, we
question.
do. We do because it's an action item.
Yeah.
But it's a procedural. It's like a procedure of the council. It's not a.
It's an action item vote,
Like
which has to be on our agendas.
We have to vote on it to make it an action item.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. Wait. I don't think Brandon was your motion.
I was voting to put it. I was voting just to do it straight through. But if we have to put it on an action item, I motion to add to the agenda an action item allowing the USA Council to meet via Zoom through the end of spring quarter 2020.
I second.
Okay. IVP, yes. EVP. Joanna. Okay, I will skip. Gen Rep 1.
Yes.
Gen Rep 2.
Yes.
Gen Rep 3.
Yes.
AAC.
Yes.
CEC.
Yes.
CSC.
Yes.
CAC. Is she here? No, she's not. Okay. CAC.
Yes.
SSC's not here. SWC's not here. Transfer Rep.
Yes.
ISR.
Yes.
EVP. Okay.
Wait,
Okay.
Kim,
When
if we don't vote, don't we not have quorum?
no, I mean she's here, but she's not voting. So.
If someone's present but not voting, that would be considered an abstention. So you still have quorum as long as the person is present, whether they vote or not. And then for items to pass, you need more yeses than nos. the abstentions don't count in determining if a vote passes.
Okay.
Joe says she's abstaining for everything.
Okay. So with a 9-0,
To 1.
the motion passes. It will be added. Or it is added on the agenda. And then for the previous motion, the vote was actually 9-0 to 1. Sorry about that. Okay. I think now we will please look at the agenda, and if you all still need to make any changes, please say now so that we could approve it. If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Oh, one question.
Yeah.
We before we left, we gave Navi some powers for the election board to be able to make decisions when when we can't meet in person as a council. Is it necessary for us to extend that, or do we want it to expire on April 10th still?
Was the motion contingent on April 10th? I thought it was contingent on like as long as the pandemic or as
Yeah.
the coronavirus thing was around.
No, but
Yeah,
it was set to expire on April 10th.
Okay.
Do we want to make that motion when we get to election board updates?
Yeah, could we make that like an action item just so if we want to do that, we have the ability to do that? Would that work, Dr. Gill?
No, I mean Navi's on the call. He can tell us what he needs to.
That's true.
No, but I think like adding that action item there.
You may
Can
want
we
to
just-
add it now, and then if when you get to it, there's no action to be taken, you can simply table the vote.
Okay. I motion to add an action item on election board updates. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, Lily seconds. I'm gonna go down the list again. IVP, yes. EVP. Okay. Well. Gen Rep 1.
Yes.
Gen Rep 2. Hello.
Yes.
Gen Rep 3.
Yes.
AAC.
Yes.
CEC. CSC.
Yes.
CAC. Okay. FAC.
Yes.
SSC. No. Transfer Rep.
Yes.
ISR.
Yes.
Okay. When a 9-0 to 1 vote, action item is added to election board updates. Okay. Can someone finally motion the agenda?
I motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Can I get a second? Okay, Lalo motions, Brandon seconds. IVP, yes. EVP? Yeah, no. Gen Rep 1,
Yes.
Gen Rep 2,
Yes.
Gen Rep 3,
Yes.
AAC,
Yes.
CEC,
Yes.
CSC, CSC,
Yes.
CAC, FAC,
Yes.
Transfer Rep,
Yeah.
ISR,
Yes.
Joanna? Okay, no. Okay, so 9-0 to 1 vote. The agenda is approved for tonight. Okay, we'll go ahead with public comment. So for public comment, please put just write on the chat if you like, press 1 if you want to comment. There's gonna be 2 rounds. One is just like with audio, and then the second round is like audio and with video. With public comment, just please be respectful of one another. Yeah, so this is the time for the public to say whatever they want respectfully, so that council members could hear what they have to say. Go ahead and make comments. I mean, write down one if you want to make a comment. Anyone from the public. Now this is your time. This is for just with the audio. Anyone?
No.
Okay. If not, going once, going twice. Okay, we're gonna move on with audio and video. Anyone from the public? Just type something on the chat if you want to speak.
Hi, can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I'm from the public, and I apologize in advance because my guinea pig is kind of in the background demanding food. So my name is Skylar. I have a couple of people here supporting me. I started a petition to revert Latin honors requirements this year to last year's. They raised them this year by 0.5, and honestly, like I did a lot of digging on how the requirements work, and they don't actually account for the top 20% of the graduating class. They account for the calculated top 20%. And like compared to a lot of other schools in our system, which mostly do 16%, their GPA requirements are lower than ours, which is confusing. And I don't see why it was raised so much this year. And I think given the circumstances of COVID and the academic impact it has had on our community and myself, I think they should be reverted to last year's standards. And I know a couple other people are on this chat, so if they wanted to share as well.
Thank you so much for that, Skylar. Does anyone else from the public would like to say something?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with Skylar. Actually, last summer I had noticed that the requirements went up, and I never knew that that was a thing. But especially now, given everything with the coronavirus going on, and considering that a lot of students were like influenced to switch classes to pass no pass, or they had to switch a lot of classes to pass no pass, which would obviously influence your GPA because pass no pass counts for like doesn't really get calculated into the GPA. Whereas if coronavirus maybe didn't happen, people could have taken a letter grade in that class and raised their GPA by getting an A or an A plus of some sort. So yeah, I completely agree with everything Skylar said, and just in general, the requirements are really high, especially considering given last year's requirements. So yeah, I agree.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public would like to say something?
Yeah, so I would basically agreeing with the other two people who have already spoken. You know, I've been doing some research too. They are really high. You know, online classes, none of us, you know, are really prepared to take the whole quarter online. Professors are not necessarily used to doing it. I think it's going to impact our grades, especially with everything else that's going on in people's personal lives. And you know, I think that we're not talking about lowering them significantly. I think just reverting to last year's would be reasonable. Some of my research also suggested that they actually base the GPA requirements on last year's class. So if that's the case and GPAs maybe fall a little, that will benefit the graduating class next year in terms of Latin honors. But for us, it won't help us at all, which really doesn't make sense given we're the ones who are graduating in a year when this is happening.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jacinta, for that comment. It is on the agenda that we will be discussing the petition that was talked about earlier. But thank you for your comments. Does anyone else from the public have anything to say? Okay, going once, going twice. You will be discussing the petition that was on what's been happening in our Zoom classrooms, which, in my opinion, is very unacceptable. And I really hope that admin could do something about it. I know that there are members from the public who are here and would like to say something. The floor is yours, Naomi.
Yeah, I was also going to say too. So, Robert, Kim, and I have been in contact with administration and also the academic senate, notifying them of everything that's been going on and awaiting their responses. We've heard back from the chair of the senate, the chair of the undergrad council. I don't think they're on this call right now. I'm looking, and yeah, I see Blandisi. Yeah, Dean Blandisi on the call. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. I think your mic is off.
We can't hear you, Dean Blandisi.
Yeah, I mean, you're unmuted, but we can't hear you.
Should I wait for her to maybe chat something? Or maybe Zoya, do you know?
Hi, this is Zoya. I'm the chief of staff to the dean of students.
Is also.
I'm not sure what's happening with Maria's. I see her unmuted.
Yeah.
Can you? Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Can we try to mute and then unmute Maria and see if that would work?
Folks, I've got Maria on speakerphone, so here she is.
Hi, I'm not sure, I'm unsure what's happening. Thank you, Josh. So, Naomi, I just wanted to offer you were referencing faculty members. So Jan Rice, she's a professor and special assistant to the executive vice chancellor and provost on online teaching and learning, is also with me. So Jan and I have been going back and forth for the past couple of hours. So when you're ready for us to chime in about what we've done to date, and then to also listen in on the conversation, we're here and ready.
Awesome. Great. So yeah, we just wanted to let y'all know that we reached out to them and they responded to us in a very timely manner. But I'm going to now, if it's okay with you, you can see your time to Alex Davis, the chair of the African Student Union, who's been helping us tackle this head on.
Yeah.
Hey everyone. Oh, sorry, Kim.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Hey everyone. As Naomi said, my name is Alexandria Davis, and I'm the chairperson of the African Student Union. So I was made aware of these instances going on via Zoom, via social media, and as soon as I saw it, I heard specifically through my African Student Union staff, specifically like instances of Black students having issues on the Zoom call and having like words like the N-word and other racist epithets said to them while they were on the call trying to learn like everyone else. And there have been numerous accounts that I found with students, and I put out a message to students in response on Twitter, just saying if there's any instances that you would like to talk about or report, like let me know so I can be able to use my position to amplify your voices and make sure this issue is handled. A big issue that I have with it is that like we're all very uncertain of what's going on in these times, especially with the coronavirus and the uncertainty of the time, that we will be like in our homes and not being able to like live everyday life. But for someone to be able to go in and like negatively impact someone's educational experience is a problem for me, especially targeting marginalized students. And it's an issue of security for me that students people that aren't students are one getting on these calls, but there are even instances where I found or heard that a professor had their lecture interrupted on Zoom by hackers allegedly, and they made another call with a specific group chat for the class, and like the beration and the comments made toward the professor and the students continued with what they thought were only students. So it's not only an issue of security with hackers, it's also an issue of like discrimination and lack of safety for students in general. I have a list of the classes that were affected that I've talked to students with. So it's Chemistry 20L, Astrology 3, and Chicano 143. I don't have all the professors, but from all the people that I got accounts from, those are the lectures that they were attending. But yeah, that's most of the information I have.
This is Zoya. Could you just repeat the classes?
Yes. Chemistry 20L, Astrology 3, and Chicano 143. And I did speak to students about like if they wanted to like report a case, I directed them to the Dean of Students website, etc. I don't know if that's been taken or initiative has been taken in that way, but I know like you can't force anybody to do anything. But the reason I'm providing the classrooms or the classes that happen is so the professors can be contacted as well.
Naomi?
Shall I?
Yeah, I just
were you? Yeah.
On council's behalf, but also just from what I've been hearing from students too. The reason why we're bringing it up, even if it is a Zoom issue, because this is occurring nationwide, as we've seen, is that we just don't believe that the responsibility should be just pushed towards the company itself. I think UCLA, especially administration and the academic senate, has a responsibility towards students to make sure that the programs and the apps that we're using, that we invest so many resources into, are well secured and that students can feel safe. Students have gone through a variety of things transitioning. People are still going through things transitioning. And I think, school for a lot of us is supposed to be some kind of sanctuary. And that was deeply affected and I want to say ruined for some people today. And it's deeply traumatizing, even hearing the words that were being said. The video is very hard to watch. A lot of people pointed that out. It's very hard as a Black woman watching that happen. And again, I told Robert this, and I will tell everyone this. I will reject any notion that we can't do anything. There is something to be done, even if these people are hackers.
I absolutely agree. I reject any notion that says that the university can't do something to ensure the safety of its students, because this is the education that we're providing and these are the times that we're in, and we need to be able to ensure that we're protecting our students. I also just want to point out, like, the African Student Union specifically put out a statement regarding things. And we just think it's necessary that we figure out why these things are happening, and like if these students, how they're gaining access, and also if these if these attackers are gaining access and if they are students.
I have a question for Dean Blandisi about this as well. Is she on the line still?
I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. I'm just wondering, I've had several classes where professors have required students to log in to use Zoom in order to access a call or a class meeting. Is there a reason why this isn't a university policy? Because it doesn't seem like an academic freedom issue, because students are paying to gain access to the lectures and be an official enrolled student in the class. So unless they've gotten specific permission to audit the class, why are the lectures not more secure?
I could answer that. We, over the weekend, in anticipation of trying to get rid of Zoom bombing, we set a whole lot of security parameters to keep this from happening. We did not impose passwords, but we recommended to the faculty that they all use them. So one of the discussions we've had since we found out about this is exactly in response to the question you were raising, which is, should we actually now enforce passwords? I know with one of the classes today, the faculty had done most of the things, but had not imposed a password. We gave it as an option. So we can reset the settings. And so we've actually been looking at the different settings that are possible for passwords.
I think if I can, maybe if I can take a step back and say that this is not okay. And I hear Naomi and Alex and others calling for us to take immediate action. And I want to offer up maybe the 6 things that I've done, that we've done as a campus so far since these reports came to our attention. And if there are additional things that we can be doing, then we would welcome those additional suggestions and requests, and also answer your questions. So can I quickly just describe, if you all bear with me and you can hear me, the 6 things that we immediately did when this came to our attention? I think that might be helpful for everyone on the call, because I completely understand that you are not wanting us to sit by and watch this continue to occur. So can I go through those 6 action items immediately today that we're done, and then we can continue the discussion and questions? Is that okay?
Absolutely.
That sounds good.
Okay. So we learned, I learned of this from the faculty member in the Chicano 143 class. I engaged with that faculty member today, and he also connected us with the student that brought this to his attention. And so we have outreach to that student today. So we're engaged with the faculty member in Chicano studies and with the student. Alex, you brought to my attention 2 other courses, and I will find out who those faculty members are, and I will outreach to them and to see if they want to ask if any of the students in those 2 other courses want to come forward so that we can connect them and talk with them. I alerted the Vice Chancellor for Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion and the Discrimination Prevention Office about what was occurring. And Vice Chancellor Kong is also brought in to the fold our IT services colleagues to assist us in figuring out what other points of reference we might be able to gather to determine who did this, what IP addresses were used, where those IP addresses are, who owns them. We don't know if we can get that information, but that is in process. Alex, I received some names as possible people. The names that have been provided to me to date that I have are not UCLA students. At least they are not enrolled. We do not have the names that were provided to me as enrolled students at UCLA. I haven't seen the video. If someone can send me the video, they can either do that through the online reporting of an incident or bias, or they can send it. That will assist us as we continue to collect evidence. And as Jan mentioned, there is additional conversations. Guidance was provided to the faculty this past weekend, and additional guidance is being offered in the coming and very soon. And our Vice Chancellor for Communication is also monitoring this to understand what other institutions are experiencing this, so that we can be in concert with whatever pressure we might be able to apply to Zoom about additional protection measures. So I understand that the K through 12 system has also been impacted by this. So we're trying to learn best practices related to this as well. And then finally, I posted on my social media, which I have a very small following, but some of you are there. You can feel free to share my statement related to how inappropriate and disappointing this is in the current environment all the time, but especially right now. So please feel free to share that statement. And if there's any specific student that you want us to do outreach to, we can of course do that. And I just need names and we'll do the outreach. So I'll stop there. There was about 6 things there. and welcome additional feedback and other insights that maybe Jan can offer. The other thing I should say is in the communication that we received from you all today, I immediately sent that to colleagues, and Jan was gracious enough to join in the conversation today because she's been on point to be thinking about these issues with campus leadership.
And I just like to follow up a little by saying I'm very grateful to have the names of the classes, because one of the things we have to be able to track down is, in fact, what did or didn't the faculty member do. So somebody just raised the question about were the Zoom links public on the CCLE or the instructor website. That's a big issue, and if the CCLE is requiring you to be enrolled in the class to get that Zoom link, then in fact it should just be the students. So we have to ask the question, and this follows up with what Maria was saying in terms of trying to track down where the IP addresses were from, because you're now all scattered everywhere, and it's much harder than if everybody were at UCLA, and then we could look for the outliers. We're also trying to, again, I mentioned the password. There are other ways that open up holes in all of this. So we're trying to force everybody to go through CCLE, which of course is more secure because, as you know, you have to use your single sign-on to do this. We can also tighten things. I mean, the example that I saw from, I think, the Chicano Studies class, all kinds of people were using aliases. We've allowed aliases to exist because if you're taking an online exam or something and you want to, or you just want to protect your privacy, we could set it so nobody could use an alias except, for example, in an exam. So there are ways of tightening this, but I think one of the real pressing questions was the one Ryan wrote, which is how do we know how do people get these? I mean, if it's inside a site and it's posted there, then somebody has to have either seen the faculty member use the same account so many times, or that somebody inside the class gave it to them. So that's why the passwords become a much more effective way, but it's another step for you and so on. So again, we can tighten up various things to do this. I guess that's kind of the quick response.
Anyone else have questions for Dean Bandisi and Professor Jan?
Right.
I'll just add that the Astro 3 video was the one that was going viral on Twitter this afternoon, and somebody, I'm not sure if it was a student, tagged me in the comments, and so I just dropped the same link to the bias reporting form that I offered in the chat here. It's really helpful for us to get more comprehensive information from students and other folks that witness or experience these incidents. So as much as possible, please share this form so that we can capture in a systematic way what's happening so that we can respond appropriately.
I'll just offer, sorry, if I can just offer, there was a question about, it is against policy to record the lectures, and students were recording the lecture when this was happening. And would we be taking action against a student that was recording the lecture in this moment? And the answer is no, we're not going to take action against a student for recording the lecture in that moment when there is an incident that is of concern. So if there's concern about, oh my gosh, I videotaped or I used my phone to record what was happening, and that's in violation of the agreement that I made that I would not record lectures, am I going to be penalized for now sharing my video? I think I would understand very clearly that the reason why there was a recording was because an incident was transpiring in the moment of the class, not necessarily to not protect the academic freedom and the content that's being delivered. So let's be very clear here that if there's an incidence of violence occurring, an incidence of racism occurring, and you get that on video and you get that that's not going to be of concern for me or for others related to following up on the actions.
One of the things I see, there's a chat about the USC document. We've looked at the USC document and all kinds of others, and basically we've built those protections in. We can circulate that again. I know that Maria sent out something right away that kind of said, this is what you can do. Mostly were things that we'd already done, but it's good to be reminded. The other thing we're looking into, and this is a question of whether this would be useful, is ways that the faculty member can immediately identify who is causing the disruption. And you can eject people from a meeting. So, you know, it's like on the screen right now, you can tell I'm talking because the light is up around my name. Particularly if faculty members have somebody else as a co-host, the way you're using that, the co-host can be doing a lot of trying to figure out who's doing it. And then even if their people have an alias, that alias can get kicked out and not be allowed to come back in. So we're hoping, and if the disruption can be stopped almost immediately, that doesn't solve the problem, but it certainly kind of tames it down and makes it less, not less offensive, but less disruptive and long-term offensive. If you think that's helpful to provide the faculty too.
Does anyone else have questions?
No, I was just gonna reiterate, especially on what Zoya said. I contacted a lot of the students who I saw were talking about the incidents that happened to them online and kind of got the accounts of what happened. So I could also reach out to them with the link that Zoya sent out. And I've also talked to the person who recorded the video, Dean Blandisi, and they should be emailing you sometime soon. They were just concerned about the issue of recording the Zoom lecture and them getting in trouble. And then there was a last thing that I said. I don't remember right now, but I think I typed it in the chat. Yeah, so what I was gonna say is like the video that the person recorded shows the initial incident that happened, and then the professor made an additional chat after the fact that he thought was only students, and then the incident started happening again with the second chat as well, and they had kicked people out as well. So
You can kick people out and then they're allowed to come back in, or you can kick them out and then they're not allowed to come back in. So that's the kind of thing that perhaps being clearer on the instructions.
okay. Okay.
I also had something too. I also wanted to add, or like just turn towards like the students themselves, especially the ones that had experienced a lot of this. And since we now know the classes that it occurred in, and I mean, I feel like a broader communication towards the student body is necessary, but some may feel that that might not be, since it didn't affect too many people. But I still think that something in written form should be communicated to students, especially when we have students like not really wanting to record because it's against university policy. So even addressing the situation, I am a firm believer in apologies and making sure that, you know, students know that they are being thought of, that they are being, you know, taken care of, and that administration is working hard to do their best to protect them in these instances, I feel like would be really useful at this time. And even just I remember too, even reaching out to the folks who were like personally affected, offering resources and support. I know in our Campus Safety Alliance group chat, someone from the Hill had dropped like a CAPS hot link to or a link to all of us. So just including that for students as well as a resource, because I know folks were like deeply affected. You can even hear in the video, one of the students was practically crying.
Naomi, this is Maria, and I hear you loud and clear. Um, the one name of the student that I have, the case management services, John Kennedy, has reached out to that student. And I've asked the faculty member in Chicano Studies if he would like me to join his next class. I hear you about needing to send a communication to all the students in that class, and I'll consult and I'll see if we can do that. And then we'll look at the other two classes. And if we have other names, if anyone has names of students that were in these classes that were directly impacted, we want to do the outreach, not just here's the CAPS hotline. Let's get case management services to call, to connect, talk to me, engage in conversation with the student to understand not just this incident, but hey, how's everything else going given how much life has changed. And so if you send me names of students that want outreach from us and are prepared to engage with us, we will of course do that outreach. And I hear you loud and clear that additional communication, whether it was a student that came forward or not, needs to hear from us. And I will talk with the other two faculty members about that to see what's possible.
Is it possible to have a statement sent out to the general community? Because I know a lot of people are feeling like, I don't even want to engage in Zoom in the first place if this is going to be happening.
You broke out on me, but what I think you're saying, Alex, is there a possibility for a general statement across the campus? Vice chancellors.
I couldn't hear you. What did you say?
Oh, Dean Glenn DC, you cut off a bit, so we couldn't understand. Okay, cool. She will type.
I also wanted to add that one of my professors mentioned, because he and I were discussing this issue, not that it happened in our class, he actually pre-records his lectures and posts them. So he said that all faculty got an email about this issue, but he was hoping that it went out to students as well, because he felt like it would have helped to inform students of what efforts are being made to prevent this issue.
I completely agree.
Okay. I was just going to say that statement is posted on a website. I will type in the link so you can all see it.
Okay, Dean Bundisi typed out her response, and she said that she hears your request and she will bring it forward to our vice chancellors. Well, thank you so much, Alex. Alex, do you have anything else to say?
All I was going to add, and I typed it in the message before, I just wanted to say, I think it should be reiterated to students that if this happens again, hopefully that it doesn't happen again, but if this does happen, that they should feel free to immediately report it so that it doesn't happen again. And they should post and blast the link that we're sharing to report to students so they know that the resources that are available.
I agree. And if we could just get a commitment from all council members to possibly disseminate that information to our followers, that would be great. And Alex, thank you so much for coming tonight and your leadership with all of this. It's a very unfortunate situation, and it's completely unacceptable. And I'm thankful that administration is working hard in solving this problem. And thank you as well, Naomi, for your communication with Academic Senate and other administration. Yeah, do you have anything, does anyone else have anything to say?
Can I just add that I really appreciate if this happens in any other classes, the way Alexandria identified the classes and everything else. That's really valuable for helping us track down how people are managing to get in and anybody who's causing a problem. And so It's probably just as easy to send that information directly to Maria and she can send it to me and we can keep on top of it.
I agree. So thank you so much. And yeah, if anyone else have any information about these incidences, please report it to the link that was shown on the chat.
Thank you for letting me listen in.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for coming. No, seriously. And thank you to Dean Dempsey too. You've been so committed to helping us with all of this. It truly means a lot.
Yes, including your Facebook updates have been really helpful. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much. I hope you have a great night.
Thank you, you too. Stay well.
Okay, so for the previous motions that we did, I did my numbers wrong. It was actually a motion of 10 to 0 to 1. Apologies for that. It should be corrected in the minutes. So yeah, now I feel bad for giving Robert a hard time for counting, but it is hard.
It's harder virtually though.
Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead with like funding allocations. Thank you so much, Dean Bandisi. Take care of yourself as well. Okay. So we're gonna go with SWC programming fund allocation.
I don't think
It's
SWC is here.
I think she brought
proxy.
she has a proxy.
Hello. Okay, so SWC Programming Fund had $2,499.15 requested, and out of that $2,000 was allocated to 3 non-USAC entities.
Is there any opposition?
Can you talk a bit about what's being funded in this context?
Yeah, so all of these were, some of them were submitted before everything went online. So I'm just gonna pull it up really quickly. But I can say for one of them, it was a group that was hosting a Jones Close that they're now moving to online. So the money was allocated to allow them to have a website and to boost their presence online, like through Facebook and Instagram. I'll pull up the other two. Sorry, my internet is slow.
You're good.
Okay, so then the other two were, one was a event called Sky at UCLA, which is a workshop that's a 4-day course that again was supposed to be on campus, but they're holding it online. And it's the same price because they're hiring an outside organization. So that's the participant fee either way. And then the third one is it's another online workshop. So it's a financial wellness workshop that's hosted by the School of Nursing, but will be available to all UCLA students.
Thank you. Helpful.
Thank you, Christina. So, does anyone have? Yeah. Does anyone oppose this funding allocation? Okay. Moving on to BAG.
No funding allocations.
Okay, thank you. ARC, is Kalechi here?
I don't think Kalechi's here yet.
Okay. Okay, then I think that's it for the funding allocation. And then we'll talk about how we will go about that with the agenda item later. Okay, the next thing is special presentation. Election board, is Navi on the call?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so I think I'm just on the agenda recurring, but I think Brandon brought up a good point and that's that council voted to provide new discretionary powers, but they're only effective until April 10th. I started to go over the election code to figure out how I could create something out of it that's that will provide us with enough flexibility during this pandemic. But I realized it's almost impossible, and I consulted. After that, I consulted with Jamal Gibbs, who's the Chief Justice of the Judicial Board, and he concurred with me that it's going to be extremely difficult to do this, and that and he did not say that the best option then is to continue doing what we're currently doing, which is the discretionary power, but that's really the only other option that we have in this instance. And I am being pretty clear with the candidates as to what is allowed and what's not being allowed in some of the measures that we're taking. Other than that, in terms of the actual elections itself, I think I discussed this last week, but we're not going to be changing the time, which is still going to be May 4th through 8th. We are still looking at how we're going to be doing our events. We don't think that Zoom is an effective platform for something like Meet the Candidates, because we'd have to essentially either have 35 breakout rooms or 35 different Zoom meetings because we have 35 candidates. And so that's like logistically extremely difficult, and we really just don't think that student engagement is going to be very high on this platform. So we're trying to figure out alternative methods. Some of the things that have popped up and that we're still discussing are, and this is just for your information, perhaps like candidate videos, and then we'll host them somewhere. And we're also thinking about, we found this really interesting platform that allows like pre-recorded videos to questions, and you can kind of scroll through each candidate and they answer the same question. We still are planning on doing debates, and they will likely be done over Zoom. We're likely going to purchase a webinar subscription for that, so that we can kind of better control who has audio video access, and because it's like a one-to-many format. Other than that, I think the next kind of direction that we're headed in is campaign orientation is this Thursday from 6 to 8 p.m. over Zoom. So you all maybe remember what your campaign orientation was like, just overview of the rules, procedures, and regulations of the election cycle. And so that's like just a broad overview. A lot of it's stuff that I already said last week, but does anybody have any questions on just that?
Yeah, does anyone have questions for Navi?
I do have a next topic that I'm jumping to, but I just thought that was a good point, but starting point.
Yeah, can you explain your reasoning a little bit behind why you decided to extend online campaigning?
Who was that?
Isabel.
Oh, Isabel. So we decided to extend online campaigning by 2 weeks because we're not allowing on-campus campaigning. And so to make up for that, we wanted to provide students with enough time to be able to engage their peers through the virtual platforms. And we figured that if students are not getting on-campus campaigning, which is quite frankly a significant, more so than online campaigning in the past, it's a significant chunk of how they are able to engage with students, that we had to make up for that somehow.
How many days total of online campaigning would there be now?
We extended it by 2 weeks, so I want to say 4,
4 weeks?
around 4 weeks, because essentially it would open next week on Wednesday, 8 a.m., and it would go through the end of the election cycle until end of week 6. So probably a little bit more than that, actually.
I don't know how other council members feel about it, but I feel like a whole month of online campaigning might not result in the amount of engagement that we're looking for by extending it by 2 weeks. Just because I think with online platforms, you are going to be reaching the same people over and over. And I don't know if it's if extending it by 2 weeks is necessarily a good substitute for on-campus campaigning. I don't know if candidates are prepared or have the capacity even to be campaigning for an entire month online.
So when the elections executive committee decided on the 2 weeks, I mean, I relate to them a lot of the conversation that we had the first time around when we were doing selection or when we were discussing the elections calendar. That said, we just strongly felt that if we are going to eliminate on-campus campaigning, that there had to be a viable substitute. And in addition, I'm hoping that we'll see some more interesting ways that candidates express themselves online, maybe not just through social media, but through other platforms. And so I'm hoping there won't be as much saturation, if you will, of just social media content, and that students will be able to do other things. But that portion also allows us to be able to help, we also want to play a little bit of a larger role in advertising who the candidates are, of course, in a non-biased, just a simply informative fashion. And we want that to align with online campaigning. So there's a couple of different reasons, but I would probably say the primary reason is just the fact that if we don't, then really what ends up happening is the online campaigning will start week 4 on Wednesday. And that means that candidates will have just a week and a half of any type of engagement before voting starts, which is just way too short.
Navi?
Hmm?
Naomi, I had a question on whether or not you guys thought even extending it just by 1 week instead of the 2.
Yeah, we decided on 2 just because it the timing worked out, because the ballot presentation, when at least the names go public, is Tuesday next week. At the next council meeting is when I'll be presenting the ballot. And so the next day just seemed like a good fit for candidates to start being able to actually publicize it, because otherwise then there's going to be a week-long kind of an awkward gap where everybody knows, or not everybody, people know who's running, but nobody's allowed to say anything, if that makes sense. Because online campaigning also constitutes text messaging and things like that. It's it's inclusive. It's not just social media, it's everything online.
Does anyone else have comments for Navi in regard to this topic? No.
Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
So next was just a discussion on, or preliminary discussion on additional funds to be directed to the elections board. So I had a meeting with Roy, Jessica, and Vong just earlier today about what's left over. I know this council has other uses for not the surplus, for the unallocated funds. However, I did want to strongly emphasize that portions of it be set aside and granted to the elections board to fund giveaways. We're looking at potentially a decrease in voter turnout, and our voter turnout is already not super high. And so figuring out ways to incentivize voting is one of the primary ways that we want to increase voter turnout this cycle. And the board discussed this in a lot of detail. We spent quite a bit of time on this, and just general strategies for how to increase voter turnout in these conditions. And we really do think that even creating many incentives is just going to be just going to be like, honestly, like the best way is the word that was mentioned in our meetings, to try to increase voter turnout. That's not to say that we're going to just rely on giveaways to try to increase turnout. We're also like really trying to see what we can do in social media. I have a meeting with Dr. Geller tomorrow to discuss on how we can better collaborate with central and campus administration to advertise the elections. But we really think that we need to take a multi-pronged approach, which will require a lot more funding that elections board just doesn't have to provide giveaways at the scale that we're looking at. And that's also not to say that we want all the money that's left over. We don't even want half, just a fraction of it, to be able to fund giveaways. And then I don't exactly know what the process is going to be like for moving the funds around. That's probably a good question for Roy and Jessica and Fong. But some of the numbers that were kind of mentioned in our meeting were, there's probably going to be about $4,000, and they might have updated numbers or better information than I do now, but about 4,000 unallocated from the USA membership fee. There's 94,000 left in contingency that's supposed to be allocated for spring quarter. And then there was also the additional money that USAC voted to increase surplus by an additional 58K. And so we're hoping to try to tap into the surplus funding that was going to go to contingency, and we would like that to be redirected partially to the elections board.
Shahama?
Hi, okay, so Navi, I was trying to understand how you would accommodate out-of-state and international students in these giveaways. Even in-state, I guess, especially considering like students might not be at UCLA, and these giveaways would, I'm just trying to understand how, like, especially considering how like it's been taking weeks for packages to be delivered, like because essentials are being prioritized in these times, how USAC allocating money for these giveaways is justified in these times.
It won't be physical giveaways. We're thinking like anywhere between like, we're thinking varying like a tiered gift card system. So like the first like 1,000 students to vote get like a $10-15 gift card. The next like 5,000 students to vote get like a $5 gift card. And so it's going to be all electronic. So I'm working with UCLA, my UCLA IT, to figure out how we're going to push the gift cards out. But my preliminary conversations with them have suggested that they already have the infrastructure in place to accommodate a request like this, and it'll basically just depend on first come first serve, and it'll push out a gift card electronically. Like, I don't know if you've received like an electronic Amazon gift card before, but like you'll have all the information in the email, and you'll be able to just like click and do whatever you need to do with it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay. Naomi, you can go ahead.
Plus, one of the reasons why we kind of want to do gift cards is because a lot of this money was derived from student fees, and so it's kind of actually just giving money back to the students and partially incentivizing them by voting, which is extremely important, of course, because there are going to be several referenda on the ballot, but also because obviously council has a lot of power, and we want to make sure that each council member council members are representatives of the UCLA students.
Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if I was clear about this, but like I think my other concern lies in like I'm struggling to justify how in this time of pandemic council should like prioritize these thousands of dollars towards giveaways when we could be supporting student workers, students insecure about housing, food insecure students. I'm just struggling to understand how this should be our priority, especially since you just described how you'd want to give, like, let's say $5 to 5,000 students. That itself is $25,000. So yeah.
I don't think the goals are. Well, first of all, it's not necessarily. I don't want this to be a priority. I think there's quite a large left money, like there's quite a large pot of money that's unallocated, and I'm asking for a fraction of that to be given to the elections board. So that's like one thing. I do agree that there are other pressing issues, such as, like as you mentioned, food and housing security for students. The second thing is, and like this is maybe you would disagree with this, but this would be open to all undergraduate students. So it could be a way for students just to get some money. And it is a reversal of essentially, I consider a reversal of student fees to some extent, because students can benefit and they benefit from that. So that there's no reason why you couldn't apply like a $5 gift card to, or $10, $15, the $5 hasn't been decided, I'm just throwing that around, but you can apply a gift card amount to essentials too. And I think the third kind of thing is, like, once again, not suggesting that this is a priority, but I don't think that they're as mutually exclusive as one would think, particularly because it is giving money back to the students. And lastly, like, yes, it's not as important of an issue as the ones that you mentioned, but it's still an important issue. I think we can agree that elections still matter, especially because of the referendum. Especially the council positions matter a lot, but the referenda too. Students will be voting to add on roughly like $75, or additional $75 per year onto their burn bills, in addition to whatever's already been assessed. So driving voter turnout, especially in this cycle, is extremely critical, and actually has financial repercussions. And so, yeah, that's kind of our retort for that, or how we would lay that out and reconcile that with the current conditions.
Okay.
Naomi?
Hi. I would just strongly disagree that those things are like interchangeable, because they're not. As somebody who offers a textbook grant to students, I would be offering $150 to like to the students most in need, versus a $5 gift card towards 5,000 students. And I get the intent, and I completely agree. Voter turnout is important. Making sure that students' voices are represented is important. But I mean, just considering the fact that there's 35 candidates, which is already twice the amount of last year, and you guys did great in that too. And then also considering that there are 3 referenda being ran from different pots of the student populations, I'm just confused as to why so much money is needed. And I would really appreciate if you could give us like a dollar amount, so that we could really see like the feasibility of this, because I know folks were talking about putting fees into like a student worker fund, or into I know I'm putting my funds into the rest of my textbook scholarship, and people are prioritizing other things. And I would just want to hear like dollar amounts, because while I believe giving student fees back is important, I don't think this is like the only way that USAC is planning on giving back student fees.
Yeah, so one thing that I want to emphasize is that I'm not suggesting that they are interchangeable. It was more just like, it's not 2 separate issues. Like, this could be an avenue to give students back something. And once again, like, in terms of a dollar amount, that's really as like much, or whatever council is willing to give. The elections board is looking for anywhere between $25,000 and $35,000. And that would come out to like a fifth of what is currently about a fifth of what is currently unallocated. So even like fractionally, proportionally, we're trying not to ask for too much, because we are aware of the different situations. But I mentioned, like, the numbers add up. Or no, that was someone else that mentioned like, you know, we're $5 gift cards, 5,000 students, etc. The numbers add up. But even when considering that, that's still just a fraction of what's actually available. And the reason I also didn't want to get too much of the numbers because Jessica also just mentioned that we can get into the details of the numbers, but the 150 is just like in general what was brought up during the meeting that I had earlier today.
Yeah, so we will go over the amount of money that USAC has later. I also forwarded an email to all council members about the breakdown of that budget, but go on ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, just for Navi, I would like before like any money would be allocated to eBoard, I personally would like to see an updated budget of what is exactly planned for the money that you already have with this new situation of COVID-19 of not having to pay for room fees, et cetera, and what your budget looks like currently before we allocate any more.
Sure, that's a reasonable request.
All right. Does anyone else have any other questions for Navi? Okay. If not, we could move on. Do you have any last minute things that you want to bring up, Navi?
No, I'll stick around I'm gonna log off and I'll come back for the conversation on the numbers.
Okay.
Oh, Kim, wait, so what are we doing with the eBoard powers?
That too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So do you all want to do that right now, or we could also wait until next week because it expires April 10th?
Will there be more council members next week? Because I know right now there's a few folks missing.
There's like 5 that are missing.
I think Robert will for sure be here next week. He better.
Yeah.
Oh, Robert.
No, I feel like we'll have more people next week to discuss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we'll table it for next week, Navi. But you could come back for the conversation about the budgets later. All right. Okay, moving on. So we're gonna do appointments. So our appointment is for David for FICOM chair. As you all know, Nadia has graduated this past winter quarter, and David will essentially be taken over her position. So, Dr. Geller, do we kind of do the same thing, or is it required?
So it would be best to do a vote to approve him. He doesn't need to go through the formal ARC process because that would have already been done when he was appointed to the committee. But since there's a change in the amount of the stipend, it would be best for you all to take a vote and we can memorialize it that way. Once she graduated, he became the acting chair, but it's still important to make him the official chair as opposed to leaving him acting, since that particular position is an ex officio member of your board that has the right to participate in your discussions and actually holds office through July.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Geller. So, okay, since he doesn't have to do the whole process thing, we could just do a motion. Can I get a motion?
I motion to appoint David Manassian to FICOM chair.
Second.
Okay, so Lalo motions, Lily seconds. I will go down the list. IVP, yes. EVP,
Yeah.
Gen Rep 1,
Yes.
Gen Rep 2,
Yes.
Gen Rep 3,
Yes.
AAC,
Yes.
CEC,
Yes.
CSC,
Yes.
FAC,
Yes.
Transfer rep,
Yes.
ISR.
Yes.
Okay, cool. For with an 11 to 0 vote. Okay, congratulations, David. You're appointed as the finance committee chair officially.
Oh, thanks, guys.
Feel free to stick around. Okay, moving on to officer report. Robert, does Robert have a proxy?
I don't think so.
Okay, okay. I guess he doesn't. Okay, IVP. Okay. So I've been kind of contemplating how my office is going to move forward for the next 6 weeks before we get a new IVP. Well, after the conversation tonight, I will decide, or like my exec team will decide how we will go about the surplus funds. But I'm really, really hoping to kind of like create a grant or an award for that because I know that a lot of students are in need. There's a lot of like basic needs insecure students out there, student workers, students that need technology or internet connection for the quarter. So yeah, just really contemplating about what's going to happen. And then one of my committee members are still planning to do online campaigning, so they are still meeting. And then Campus Safety Alliance meetings will still occur via Zoom. More updates will happen the following weeks. Yeah. So EVP.
I feel like I don't think I have anything.
Okay, cool. Gen Rep 1? No, okay. Maybe start it out. Gen Rep 2?
Not too interesting stuff, more just trying to figure out how to move forward now that a lot of the off-campus things are not here, because a lot of the things that we were pushing for kind of don't really have an effect when there aren't students on campus to make their life easier. So we might just keep pushing for those kinds of things for next fall, if indeed next fall we are back on campus again. Yeah, I think that's all.
Okay. Gen Rep 3?
Hi. So like other council members said, we were trying to look how we could move forward with all this. We've been working throughout this week on getting a letter written. Last week we had a public comment from a member of the undergraduate body, Delaney. Delaney was helping to lead an effort to get a letter written in support of student workers to the UCLA administration and also to ASUCLA. Well, not to ASUCLA, but about ASUCLA workers who are not technically employed by UCLA. ASUCLA is an independent entity, as probably many people know on this call. So I was working a lot on that with her and the other coalition members, and I encouraged other council members to support the letter. It was distributed earlier. Another thing we're working on is, I'm sure, as many people know, in addition to the health effects of the virus, there have been significant economic effects. Westwood businesses have been forced to close in not just because of stay-at-home order and their inability to have customers, but because of economic hardship, many factors going on there. So one thing my office is trying to do is trying to figure out ways we can help students who are still in Westwood or still attending campus, not attending campus, but taking their online classes from the neighborhood. See if we can get discounts with local businesses, so we can both help the businesses and help students get cheaper food options potentially as everything goes on. This came out of the efforts we were trying to make to do student organization discounts. Obviously, student organizations are not operating in the same way at the current time because of COVID-19. But we will continue to advocate for students and hopefully get them some options, but also help our Westwood businesses. I don't know if everybody heard DD Reese is closing tomorrow, which I was saddened by, but we'll see what we can do. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. AC?
Hi, everyone. So, like everyone was mentioning earlier, my office is definitely trying to transition and figure out how to best support students through academic affairs. I would say that we're seeing a lot of students coming to us regarding like disputes with professors, disputes from the winter, and things of that nature. Lily had forwarded somebody to me earlier in the week, and so have other people. So if y'all have people who have questions, feel free to forward them to me, and I can try to connect them to like the best resources possible. I would also like encourage them to reach out to Dean Blandisi. I do know a lot about academic policy, but I don't know everything, and also I'm not in that space anymore. I try to keep myself very updated, but I will admit too, I am dealing with a lot of other things that are going on in council, as y'all have seen with like various concerns being brought up. So I just want to emphasize, like, I'm a human and I do want to help students as much as possible, but these are very heavy things that we're dealing with. So again, I'm a resource, but I will also do my best to connect students to other resources as well. In that nature, we also have our Books for Bruin scholarship open right now. My team decided to extend or expand the amount that we would be giving to possibly to 150 at most. That's the max allocation. I will admit this is the largest applicant pool we've ever seen. We expected that because of COVID. We are currently at 500 applicants, and my staff is going to read through all of those applications, evaluate students' needs. It's a very long process, but we're committed to making sure that we're allocating the appropriate amounts, but also making sure that students who are experiencing hardship are prioritized. So we're doing that. I've been working with Bong to transition and to make sure that the funding that I'm using, we can take from like the other funding pools and just do budget transfers. Other than that, my office put out an online resources platform preparing for online learning. Thanks to Dr. Geller, we've been trying to find other online resources that students can use too, and to help students through this transition. A lot of people have not ever taken an online class. I've never taken one, and I didn't want to take one for obvious reasons. It's really hard to stay focused, as I'm pretty sure y'all all have seen this week. But we're really committed to making sure that students have the adequate resources to make sure that they can succeed. I would also say on the academic Senate side, our senators are still actively working. They're still attending virtual meetings. We had our academic planning and budget senator attend her meeting, and she also brought up concerns of student workers. She let us know about the 128 hours and concerns being brought up there. I'm not sure if you guys want these like meeting notes relayed to council, or how you guys feel is the best way to be brought up, to be aware of all these things. I can do them through email as I have been doing, but you guys can just let me know too if you guys want periodic updates for what's going on within Academic Senate via COVID-19 or anything of that nature. Also within the Academic Senate too, right now we currently have a vote in regards to priority enrollment too. So you guys should be hearing news on that too, because that's something that I, along with Isabel in her office, as well as Zuleika, have been really trying to like fight for and push forward. So even though this COVID-19 stuff is still happening, we are still committed to like pushing forward academic policy, solid academic policy that's going to go past this COVID-19 situation.
Cool. Thank you, Naomi. I know that your office has been really busy, for the past 2 weeks with like everything that's going on, the online transitioning. So thank you for your leadership in terms of that. Okay, so CEC.
All right. So, yeah, like everyone, we're in the process of seeing how we can transition things to have events and entertainment in some way moved virtually. I guess my main goal is like if we can provide any sense of community and like distraction for students with some form of entertainment, like anything we can do is a plus. We're just throwing ideas around. I think we'll be doing like a lot of like live stream type things. Talked to Mahika today about like doing like I know people that are certified like yoga instructors and working together to like do like a UCLA yoga Zoom class or whatever, like different things like that. It's just gonna take some time. I met with my directors yesterday and have a lot of ideas. It's just a matter of coming up with a game plan to execute now. We had to make a decision about hiring because we were going to hire new staff at the start of this quarter, which we weren't big on doing it virtually. So I think we're having like a very, very limited hiring just to make sure that when seniors graduate, we're not left with an extremely small staff, but we're going to have to modify that. And then I believe that's it for now. The rest will hopefully be coming within the next 2 weeks, and we'll have a more solid game plan.
Wait, is she done? I'm sorry, my AirPods turned off.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, sorry. Okay. Thank you, Tara. CSC.
Hello. Hope all is well and everyone is hanging in there. In CSC land, first, SFS Supplemental Fund for Service has we're putting SFS on hold for the month of April, because SFS is not a like primarily programmatic fund. It's by the name. It's a supplemental fund for service, and it funds things like national dues and supplies and stuff like that. With the advisement of our sole advisor, we're going to reevaluate in May to see if we should reopen, because we do still have the funds. So SFS for April is on hold. Project Bruin, which is the event we do in spring, where we bring all of our service recipients, young service recipients, to campus for a day, has obviously been canceled at this time. We're debating on doing something to make up for it in the fall. Homelessness Awareness Week was supposed to be this week, but obviously that is also being canceled, but should be on the lookout. We're trying to do some different online modalities, like advocacy wise, to kind of replace some of that. And the same thing, Fight for Higher Ed Week was supposed to be this quarter, and we're looking to do the same type of thing there. Our transportation fleet is closed as regular, as we like our no regular operations are occurring with that, as everyone is supposed to be at home anyways. And we decided for the rest of the quarter that we're going to go ahead and do transportation on a case-by-case basis if there becomes a time when it's no longer where we're supposed to be leaving, or when we can leave. Besides that, the main things that we've been doing, we teamed up with CAC, the Community Activities Committee, another CAC, which really is the funding body that is the lifeblood for service on campus. They fund about 90 service orgs with operational funds. We've partnered up with them to send out a survey to all those service orgs, including ours, just to kind of gauge where we've already gauged where our projects are at. Obviously, most are non-operational at this point, but specifically with our tutoring and mentoring projects, there's a big opportunity, and I would say a still continued need for our volunteers to have some sort of relationship and ongoing contact online with those students, whether that be through phone calls or through Zoom, and team mentor relationships, especially in this hard time, I think can be crucial and can help students get through this whole transition and figuring out what all this means together. So we're trying to see what are the best ways that we can be supporting all service projects on campus in transitioning to online modalities so that they can continue to work with the populations that they do and to continue to keep community ties. That's something that like we really value, is that many of our projects have been at the same site with the same people in the same community for decades, and to kind of have like a time away from that was not expected is kind of abrupt. And how do we continue to keep relationships and keep things moving in that sense? That's where we're at. Last thing I have, the Robert S. Michaels Award. Thank you for those of you that shared and helped out with that. Applications were due on Monday night, and we received 37 applications, which is the highest that I have ever heard of. It's more than triple the amount of applications we got last year. So I'm personally really excited about that. I was nervous that we weren't even going to have 10, so I'm very glad that we have almost 40 now. So I'll be going through that process, and there's some logistics on the back end with the whole Robert S. Michaels Award, but we'll be figuring that out soon. Yeah, that's me. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Jonathan. Does CAC have a proxy or not? Okay, probably not. Okay. Financial Supports Commission. Does she have a proxy?
I don't.
Okay. Does she have a proxy or no?
I think she said that she didn't.
Okay. SWC.
Okay, hi, I'm the proxy for Mahika, so I'm just going to be reading out what she wrote for this meeting. Okay, so SWC general updates. Hiring for new staff is going to continue as planned. So applications are out now and they're due April 8th. Overall, SWC is adapting well to the online format. Creation and programming. And then I'm going to go through each committee and just give an update on how they're adapting. So Active Minds is going to have a general meeting every other week, so weeks 3, 5, and 7, and each meeting will have a different mental health professional guest speaker. Bruin Necessities is compiling a COVID-19 resource document aimed at students. So please have your offices check it out and contact Mika if there's anything to add. It's currently in its beginning stages, so they would appreciate the help. They're also planning to distribute menstrual and dental hygiene products to students in Westwood. Those are the products that we have in the office that are usually distributed in Kirkhoff. Body Image Task Force is starting a program of challenge activities like on Instagram for body acceptance. So that's going to be on social media and have giveaways. Bruin Consent Coalition. Okay, so April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month, so they're going to be transferring their planned programming online as much as possible. They're switching their internship to a digital internship with the application opening this Friday. The CPR and First Aid Committee is developing a webinar-based first aid instruction close. So if you know of any student groups that might be interested in a free close, please contact Mahika. Bruin Run Walk has canceled their annual Bruin Run Walk for obvious reasons. Their fundraising for the Chase Child Life Program at Matella Children's Hospital will still occur, but just through social media, and they're developing a virtual 5K. Sexperts will be continuing its YouTube channel with birth control coffee chat series and safe sex practices during social distancing. They will offer virtual workshops for any RAs who are interested. And then finally, Total Wellness is moving its design to be online. It's going to be published Monday of next week with a focus on exercise and fitness. And that's all.
Cool. Thank you. Transfer rep.
Hello. So the transfer lobby day has been canceled, and I'm currently figuring out what I'm going to be doing with the rest of my term. I met with the director of the BRC, Paolo, and the only career employee at the transfer center, Sarah, last week, along with the TLC chairs. And I think we're going to be, the three entities are going to be collaborating on how we're going to introduce transfer students to UCLA and like helping them transition and like get all the resources that they would normally have gotten during transfer Bruin Day, because that is also an event that was canceled. And that'll be like along the same lines as the new Bruin Bound like video series webinar thing that UCLA is developing, which will be replacing the two Bruin Days. It's still like, we're still very much like deciding what we're doing, so no hard details or anything like that. Additionally,
Are you done, Isabel? We couldn't hear your last statements.
Maybe she's
Okay.
typing it.
She says she's done. It's fine.
Okay. Okay. ISR.
I don't have anything.
Okay. Cool. OCHC. Harsh.
Hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Hi. Not a lot of new updates. OCHC will not be continuing with student government on the Hill for the spring quarter, and there's been a lot of other changes going on. But yeah, that's mostly it. I did have one question though, and I apologize if I'm like missing out on something, or but a couple of people did come up to me and ask me about the possibility of requesting admin of to record lectures and having them posted for international students. So I wanted to ask if that is something that we'll be talking about or considering uh, um, giving them a suggestion for.
It came up last week. I believe it was included in our letter that we sent to the academic senate and administration. I think we need to discuss what other actions we can take, because I think it remains an important problem. And also another like somewhat associated issue is like the mandatory record. So like mandatory video presence in classes, which could be like viewed as a violation of privacy, but like that's somewhat separate. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brandon. Yeah, last time when I did read the letter, I found it on there, but I was just wondering if there was any update. But that was helpful. I'll let them know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Arsh. Admin rep, Dr. Geller.
At this point, I don't have any news that you don't have. As I get any information, I'll share it. And if any of you need anything at any point, please reach out and let me know.
Thank you so much. Jessica.
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to talk about the virtual Bruin Day that's going to be happening. So earlier, last quarter, I asked for any current year photos for your offices, for your events and programs. So if you can still send those, that would be helpful, because our marketing team is likely going to be making some graphics and different digital content. So if you can still send me any photos from your office programs or events on campus, that would be great. The other thing that I just wanted to mention related to that, our ASUCLA outreach manager, Kelly Goodman, has been getting a lot of requests from different incoming students and like families of incoming students asking a lot of questions about student government. So we are kind of discussing, how to create some digital content that would be a little bit more descriptive beyond like the events and programming that you all do, to go into more detail about like the different offices, the shared governance at UCLA, different things like that. So if anybody has any ideas of how we can create some virtual content or videos or anything of that nature, let me know. And if you have any ideas to send over, you can send them by email, and then we can chat offline about gathering some information to help with that committee who's kind of involved in the planning, to make sure we get them enough information to kind of like engage students, incoming students, on student government. That's it.
Cool, thank you. Oh, and as what Jessica was saying earlier, if people could check if they actually have Zoom Pro, I think she's trying to get us, yeah, she's trying to get us Zoom Pro for like each council member.
Yeah, so Dr. Geller had mentioned that student accounts through CCLE should have been upgraded to Zoom Pro. So if you can just log in through ucla.zoom.us with your single sign-on and check if your account profile says licensed, then you should have Zoom Pro, and you should be able to hold unlimited length of time meetings for up to 300 participants. If you don't have that, or if you need some other special thing that's not offered with the Zoom Pro license, let me know so that we can help. If we need to purchase anything through Software Central, Vong and I can help get that done if you need something beyond what you're already having access to with your Zoom account.
And just to add some clarification to that, it's important that you, every time you access it, you do go in through the UCLA Zoom portal and not through the generic Zoom portal. If you don't use the single sign-on to get in, it won't show as part of your pro license.
Where can we check this again?
So I dropped the link to the chat, so it'll lead you to the sign in, like the single sign on, and then it'll lead you to your profile and just check if you're licensed. Okay. So Josh, do you have any updates for us?
Yeah, hey everybody. Just wanted to provide a few updates for you. Tara, when you were talking about advertising CEC programs, Res Life has also shifted to being completely online. We are advertising all of our online social and academic engagements on our website at reslife.ucla.edu. We did a really quick change over spring break to make sure that we could get everything advertised to our students as soon as possible. So that is an open invite. If anyone has any programs that they would like to be advertised on that page, where we are having our undergrads that still live with us, they are more than welcome to just send me an email, and I'd be happy to get those up and on our site for you. Secondly, the Hill is still open. We are small but mighty now with dining open. So I know there were rumors that people were being asked to leave, and we were pushing people out. I just want to verify that that has not happened. Anybody who needed housing, wanted housing, is totally able and willing to stay. And there are dining facilities open for those folks. So just clarifying those pieces.
Cool, thank you, Josh. Roy, do you have anything?
The only thing I think I would add is that, you know, we are here to support your finding ways to be, you know, continue your effectiveness of your offices in what could be the transition, and certainly to support the upcoming election and the turnout. And I feel very optimistic because we've been able to witness your um, you know, the student body recognizing the relevance that their government can have if there's a crisis, that they can turn to their government, and the government can advocate for them and is a connection point. And I think it's been, you know, magnificent to see, you know, the government being able to work the way it's intended. So just enthusing on that point. You guys have been great. That's it.
Thanks, Roy. Fernando, do you have anything for us?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I was just about to ask if someone could get Isabel back, but I think she is back. Just because I didn't see her in the.
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. That's it.
Okay, cool. Okay, I think that's all for updates, unless I'm missing someone. But okay, moving on to new business. So yeah, we're gonna talk about USAC budget and funding. So if I could have like Roy or Wong to explain to us what the budget that you sent us earlier.
So maybe I will start us and let Vong add some more information. I hope you're all able to see the budget summary that Vong sent out. It highlights unallocated balances. So that's really what it's sort of doing. For everybody to understand, once allocations are made, it is difficult for SGA to be certain as to whether expenditures have made, because so many mechanisms like that. So, you know, until we really get to the end of the year, we often are not sure what all the expenditures are. So it's really useful to look at it through the lens of unallocated money, because if it's unallocated money, then there's nobody we know that nobody is prepared to try to act on that money, or is planning to be able to act on it. So the other thing I think it's important to look at is, you know, there are still sources of money, and, you know, Vong and Jessica can help us to understand the different balances and where they derive from. It's important to know the source of the money, because the source of the money will describe money is for. And as I've told you, you know, sort of when we just start talking about budgets, sort of the wording of referenda and therefore the voters, there's no sort of the Constitution, and the word of the voters is sort of the highest order of magnitude of guidance, and the council can't just readily overwrite that. So what we're looking for, I think, and we want to support you guys in, is interpreting the broadest use based on the purpose of a fund to potentially be redirected to what, you know, what normally might not always be the expenditure, but that reasonably fits, especially reasonably fits in a time of crisis, into a definition of what the purpose of the funds are. So, you know, again, it might be useful to kind of go through those. The surplus money that you guys gave to contingency, I think that's a $54,000 balance, is something that is some of your most, you know, your greatest flexibility to look at that money. Or at the top of that sheet, I think there was $4,000. It was from the membership fee. That's also a relatively flexible piece of money. The other question is that $95,000 from wellness for contingency. I think it may be able to be purposed consistent with what the contingency referenda says. But that's the balance we need to find, is sort of what is the sources of the money sort of say, and what's our broadest possible definition of how those things can be utilized. So that's my start you off input.
Does anyone have questions for Wong and Roy? Okay, Naomi, go.
I know that some folks had talked about making a student worker relief fund or things of that nature, where we give student this money, this pot of money, to students in that way. And I'm not necessarily working on that, so I can't really speak on it as much. But is it possible within what you've been outlining for us to be able to do something like that?
So I'm certainly going to welcome input from others that are knowledgeable in this area. I think one of the things that's critical if we're trying to give money directly to support students is, A, partly what the purpose is, but B, if we're trying to give money to students, I think it has to be extremely broadly available. So if anything like that has to be sort of available to any undergraduate student, and then the rubric and the definitional purpose of the fund can sort of then help you find your way through. Ability and accessibility to everyone is critical, and then straightforward offset of displaced income seems like a more difficult way to frame it. I've heard some of the discussions perhaps being about trying to see struggles for students trying to engage in their studies, or that I think aligns potentially nicely with the academic commission, or whether it's some difficulties. There's some range of motion maybe in travel, but let me see if anybody else has any other input on that. Perhaps Dr. Geller.
My thought is that whatever is done, as you said, it needs to be consistent with the original purpose of the particular funds. It needs to be done in a way that all undergrads are eligible to apply based on some sort of criteria that's viewpoint neutral. And you need to make sure, if it's anything that would have an impact on financial aid, that you work with financial aid so that you don't unintentionally jeopardize other resources the student has. So those would be my general thoughts. Most of it, you're not going to be able to meet the need of every student who might be interested in a particular award or program you might develop. So you're going to need some criteria for assessing the applications and determining who gets and who doesn't. And then you also need to be careful, depending on how it's being issued, to make sure that if what you're doing is something that would be available to international students, to undocumented students, to others who may not be entitled to all the same resources as others. Because I know that your interest is that whatever you do be available to as many as possible. And also you want to think about how are resources distributed. If you're doing something, I know earlier Navi was talking gift cards. How do you get them to the individuals? What kinds of stores would they be useful for? If you've got a senior who's graduating and may not return to campus, an ASUCLA gift card might have limited value. So think about how you would distribute what you're doing as well.
Does that answer your question, Naomi?
Yeah, but I also like I guess it's a follow-up, but just in regards to for example, like if we wanted to donate or move that money to like ECRT, or I mean you had mentioned like the undocumented student program, but I'm not sure like the need there either, and I don't want to speak on that, but just like different entities that may also use it, like financial aid and like the Bruin Tech grant, like is it able to be moved there, or right now is it just surplus fees that have the flexibility to be moved out of the USAC budget?
Certainly
Well,
some of your
depending.
offices are able to do grants. You've done that in the past. And
Mhm.
Roy can better address the specific offices and the funds that each of you have.
Yeah, so I'll add that, yeah, I think we want to look at the available monies. And then I certainly think that, it may be a very efficient way if you want to consider if once we identify available funds for a given purpose, ECRT might be a great mechanism to sort of help with the administration of it, to make sure it syncs with financial aid. I assume they could help make sure it's properly conceived. So, and that tech fund you were talking about. So, where we are able to make sure they have enough resources, I think that can be a really effective way to bring those resources to bear quickly. Because again, time will evaporate quickly. So the degree to which we can use existing mechanisms will help you to be effective. Beyond that, I think we got to start looking at individual line items with potential places to apply the money.
So just to clarify, so is it just the surplus, or like any of the remaining budget could be moved to those entities?
No, I wouldn't say it's any of the remaining money. No.
Okay.
And that's why there's so much detail here. The source of the money is important. So community service mini fund monies would have to be utilized in some way that still speaks to the underlying notion of community service, or however that referenda was worded. The thing about surplus that gives you maximum flexibility is that you have greater flexibility. And the other thing is about your membership fee is it has better flexibility. Almost all your membership fee, though, gets utilized in just paying your basic expenses of running a really large association, which yours is. So it depends on, and that's why when you look at this report, it starts really based on the notion of what the source of the money is. So that's why that first line, that first 4-digit code speaks to the nature of the fund. So we really got to have to go through it that way.
Does anyone else have any questions for Roy and Wong?
I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
This is for Roy or Vong. I know at least on my end, like I still have, like I don't have a large amount of money in my budget because my budget's small to begin with, but like I do still have money in my budget. So I was wondering if like for maybe offices that do have like some funds in their budget, whether it be like operational or programming, would we be able to use that in order to like pull it together to like fund like ECRT or USP? Like is that money able to be moved around to fund different things?
So I believe that I'm optimistic on that idea. If Vong or Jessica can help me remember what the source of that money, it might have been surplus, or it could have been membership fee that was the source of that money that was distributed to the offices.
Yeah, I think it's ESCOF, which I think comes from membership fee, but Vaughn can correct me if I'm wrong.
Which office was that?
GenRep 1.
Yeah, so those are from membership fees from the ESCOF.
Okay, so that one is able to be moved around then.
Yes.
Okay.
And so the thing to recognize is that that's the basic membership fee didn't have like a really exact purpose. Like, you know, shall we do this for this community service projects? It's just the general membership fee. So it's really broad latitude.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah.
And with the surplus and the remaining office budget that we have, and if we were to create some sort of award or grant to it, would you suggest talking to financial aid, or is that necessary?
You know, Dr. Geller is a better expert on that subject. I think that financial aid needs to be coordinated with or know of the awards so that they can ensure either be pointless because it offsets part of their grant and ends up just, you know, different way of paying it, or, you know, so Dr. Geller.
Yeah, always a good idea to let them know what you're thinking of and see if they have any concerns.
Okay. I'm just wondering if there's a way to avoid that.
There's always a way to avoid it, but the implications could be bad.
Okay, got it.
And I think part of the thing to understand is the implications could just be bad for the person you're trying to help.
Oh, truly. Okay, does anyone else have questions?
Are we making like a decision on how we're moving forward as a council, or are we just gonna do our own thing with like our office? Or like I'm just like, I don't know what, like how we as a council are kind of moving forward.
As each office has an idea of what it wants to do, remember that any funding changes you make, you need to create guidelines and you need to bring those to council for a consent vote, which has to happen before you implement any programs.
I think also offices are still trying to see exactly how much money they have left in their accounts. I know that from this email, you all did mention that a follow-up budget report breakdown will be given out next week.
So are you referring to a follow-up budget report to the one that got sent earlier today?
Yeah, because it says like next week it'd look at each office's budget and see what is left in their programming fund and big events that will no longer take place.
I think that we can get that information. Vaughn can run that report. The thing that's also useful is when it's in somebody's office, again, it goes back to that question of sometimes we don't know whether the student group or the student's office has plans in play already, or may have already expended the money and are just going to turn in a reimbursement. So I think it's important to maybe Vaughn can run a report, and then the office holder needs to look at it and understand whether there's expenditures that were already made that we have simply not seen paperwork on.
Yeah, I agree. Joanna, you had something to say?
I forgot. I like forgot it and I remembered it and I was like, okay, good, I'm not gonna forget it again, and I forgot it again. So give me a hot second to try to remember it, and then I'll ask it.
Okay, Naomi.
Yeah, I had a question about Dr. Geller. So you said if we are, for example, my office was thinking of purchasing subscriptions. I think this was before we found out that actually purchasing Zoom subscriptions for student leaders so that they could still conduct like general body meetings and whatnot. If we wanted to do something like that, that would have to be approved by.
So That's an interesting one coming from your office. That might actually already fall within the criteria
Yeah,
of your existing guidelines. And if it does, you don't need to do anything different.
Got it. Okay. It's just when it's new and going outside of like the guidelines.
Yes, if you're going to extend the fund to something it would not have previously been eligible for. But it sounds like that would probably fit within your existing fund guidelines already.
Okay, great. And then I had a second follow-up question. I think this is more so for Vong. For those of us, like Anna and I have existing travel grant funds. I know I personally was going to do a budget transfer, and I was going to email you, but since you're here, you might as well just answer if you can, about like moving, for example, travel grant funds to my general programming office budget through budget transfer. Is that okay?
I believe that's okay. I believe the transfer grant originally came from your budget and you transferred it over to that. So yeah, that's back. That's fine to move it back.
Okay. Mm. Do you remember what your question, Joanna?
Yeah. Well, now I have to. So similar to Naomi, for the burn advocacy grant, I don't foresee any reason for me to be paying for people to go to gatherings anymore, like conferences and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if that funding is just supposed to stay there, if I'm allowed to move it. And then secondly, going back to Lalo's question about what we're supposed to do as council, I know Navi was asking about us to allocate funding. So I don't know if we wanted to do that this council or postpone that.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
if I could
go ahead, Roy.
The only thing I was going to add is, I often advocate that it's best, to try to get all the thoughts together. If there's a limited amount of money, to get all of the ideas together at the same time and just decide, on allocation so you can prioritize, one thing against the other and make sure that the council is able to weigh what its priorities are. So maybe, coming back next week with more information as to, range, remaining balance, what kinds of things it can be used on, more information on remaining available funds in council offices, roll it all up, and then know how much money you have to make your priority decisions on.
And you asked Navi to give you an updated budget report on what he's doing with the funds he already has. That might be helpful for you all to consider in deciding what to do. He also is going to need to work through what, if anything, he can do as an incentive. The thought he was sharing about gift cards would certainly need to be tweaked before it could be implemented in a way that would be consistent with the requirements for having anonymous votes and not necessarily tracking or incentivizing the first voters rather than being random.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just if like Navi could send council members like his budget breakdown and then maybe decide on whether or not we would want to allocate him next week. I do want to see how much money each offices have, and then we could have like a bigger discussion on whether or not we want to, if it's possible to pull it all together and like, figure out our priorities, and if like we do want to allocate some of that money or or like all of that money to some students in need. How does everyone feel about that?
That's fine.
Yeah.
Navi, I would say we want it by next week.
Yeah, so we could discuss it during council meeting next week. Okay, I mean, if no one else has any questions
Okay,
for Roy,
question about
oh my God, guys.
What do I do about bag? Like,
Same answer for that I give to Naomi. Bag was originally from your membership fee, so you could go ahead and transfer that back to your account if you need to use it for something.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, cool. We'll revisit this conversation next week. Hopefully, all council members, especially those that still have a lot of money left in their account, could make it. Okay.
Kim, can I add something really quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think also as you all are considering funds that you currently have in your office that you may want to be redirecting, if it's helpful to have a side conversation with myself, with Roy, with Vong, let us know. We can set up a Zoom call if you want to get more into like the specific details of your particular office funds. Just let us know and we can talk before next council meeting. This way, when you meet next, you can kind of have a better or clearer picture of what you want to do and like where the money is sourced from in your office.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, Jessica. I'll definitely take you up on that offer. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is commencement. So Lalo, if you want to just like kind of explain our email thread with Vice Chancellor Gordon as well as Vice Provost Dean Turner, that'd be cool.
Yeah. So for folks that were there for the call we had with Vice Chancellor Gordon, with the initial conversation about the cancellation or the preemptive cancellation of commencement, but and then the subsequent recanting of that, Vice Chancellor Gordon brought up that they were putting together a team, for lack of a better word, between different folks within student affairs and Vice Provost Dean Turner's office. And so from like the email thread that Kim initiated, we kind of got in more information in regards to that. So from what they said, it's like a larger committee that is dealing with things more than just commencement, but it's also dealing with things just like stuff that would be happening during like spring quarter, and like commencements is like a subcommittee within that larger group. And the conversation that we've had with them has mainly just been like emphasizing including the student initiated, student ran graduations within this committee, such as like Rasa grad, Afro grad, PI grad, and other graduations that are put on by students. And they haven't necessarily committed to including them. From Vice Provost Turner's last email, it seems like they're leaning towards it, but from like talking to different folks that are a part of the planning process, they haven't necessarily been outreach to yet. That's just for the student initiated graduations. I don't know what other folks they were planning on including within like the commencements team, because they haven't necessarily shared with that. They did say they were considering just like the largest like students from the larger student body as a whole, but they haven't like solidified that. And from my understanding, they also haven't necessarily met up yet either. So I think they're trying to like finalize that. I think that was everything. Feel free to add anything, Kim.
Okay, Isabel, do you have questions?
Yeah. Do you know if they are considering reaching out to these student groups to make sure that they have like a seat at the table, even if they're not included? Does that make sense?
They haven't said that. The only like committed thing they said is like they're like considering it. Here, let me see what Dean Turner said last.
Like, are these student groups going to be on the committee, I guess?
Yeah,
They are?
Look, like I'm saying, I don't know if they are.
Okay, I see.
That's what they're like considering at the moment. In like Monroe's initial reply, he was saying more along the lines of like they will be in the consideration of students that would be added to the team. They did say they're expecting to invite several students, but they like at the initial time they were saying like, oh, we're like the like student run graduation chairs are like among the pool students being considered. And from there hasn't really been a commitment to like for sure include them or like even get in contact with them. Did that answer your question? It's a lot of like non-committal things at the moment. And I think that's just because they're trying to figure out like how the committee is going to be structured anyway. Um, but I'm hopeful that they will be because I know at least from like Vice Provost Turner's last email, she said it would be like Mick and Monroe that are doing that. And I know that at least Mick I've met with like consistently this year to like advocate for including like the student run graduations more within like the administrative process or like supporting them more administratively. So I'm hopeful it'll go through.
Do you know when they're meeting again?
They didn't say. They just said that they haven't like set up meeting times yet.
Okay. Can council be like made aware of that so that either we can go and advocate for student groups or like we can invite student groups ourselves?
I think they said Robert is like they're communicating with Robert about it as well, so we can also like key in Robert for him to let us know when it's gonna happen.
Okay. Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's just very important to have students be a part of that committee because, yeah, like it's unfortunate that the cultural grad chairs have been working on graduation for like such a long time, and for this to happen, it's just like really sad. Naomi.
I also wanted to say too, Lala, I don't know if this is something like you can push for, but like even like how Isabel was saying, like advocating for it to go beyond just Robert. I know like Robert's one person and he's doing a lot right now as well. But also he like doesn't have the breadth of knowledge that these students who've been organizing this literally for years have. So like I think having their voice is super important.
Yeah, I think that that's mainly the reason as to why I sent the email and looped Lalo in because I know that he's part of the Rasa grad, or at least the committee for Rasa grad. So I know that like he's like an expert on like cultural graduation.
Yeah. That reminded me of something that I was gonna bring up when we were talking about the budget and like USAC funding real quick. Um, just like something that has been brought up by one of the like student initiated grad committees is they are still want to apply for like the funding cycles for this like quarter. Um, I know that BOD had sent out an email saying that like the like allocations for this quarter weren't gonna go through. But I know some folks that like expressed when I mentioned that like some folks expressed concern because it's like it's not like the event is canceled; it's effectively like postponed at the moment. Um, so I did just want to like bring that up, and then I'll probably like be outreaching to like the budget review committee just to like see if there's any thoughts on that. Yeah. So usually admin doesn't have purview over the student initiated graduations. Essentially what has been kind of been pushed by the orgs that put on these graduations for years now has been for there to be more administrative support in regards to the graduations just because these are like really big graduations that get put on. And they do like require a lot of administrative support. Um, so it's not that they have purview, it's that the students that put on the events are like trying to hold them accountable to supporting them with the process because they are like I mentioned like massive graduations.
Like in terms of funding or
in general, just like the planning process, with like securing venues, making sure that everything is good to go. Funding does tend to be a part of it. There is like a um graduation funding body that the different student run graduations can apply to. But it's more just like planning the logistics of the event and making sure everything is good to go because at least for example, like the Rasa graduation it's put on in Poly Pavilion. It's 650 graduates that attend every year. and there's over like 10,000 people that attend that. So that's like a massive event that the students put on, and there does need to be like administrative support to ensure that the event runs smoothly, just because a lot of the people that even plan the event are themselves graduating. So there needs to be that admin support like in the planning process and the day of to make sure that the event runs smoothly. So like I mentioned, they don't have purview. It's just they're being held accountable to do their job and support the students in the planning process.
Okay, and so what's happening now is that the admin doesn't want to help with that, or?
It's not that they don't want to help with that. It's that we're pushing for the student-initiated graduations to have a direct seat at the table, as like admin tries to see how they're going to postpone commencements and ensuring that like the student-initiated graduations are also postponed and not canceled. So making sure that they are also looped in on like what the tentative timeline is and like how it's going to work logistically and all that.
I think I can speak for administration when I say that we understand the importance and significance that the student-initiated graduation celebrations have for the communities. They're important in a number of ways, not the least is the limit on tickets at the official degree conferral ceremonies and their lack of personalization, the way students aren't individually given the opportunity to be recognized. Your events allow families to come out to recognize and support the graduates and typically have that opportunity for students to be more engaged individually and in some sense to be able to show appreciation for the family and the community that supported them as well. So I'm not part of the decision making, but I would be extremely surprised if there wasn't a desire to make sure that there was a way that whenever the commencement occurs, that the student initiated celebrations would also be able to occur.
Yeah, and I think that was brought up by Vice Chancellor Gordon when we met up. I think it was like during spring break or during finals week. That was brought up, and like I think that's something that is more solidified. I think the main concern is ensuring that like the students are also involved in that like rescheduling process. And there does seem to be like some movement to like ensure that that is in some way present. But thank you for that, Dr. Geller.
All right, cool. Does anyone else have last minute questions, comments? Okay. Yeah, hopefully we get more information about commencement in the following weeks. Okay, that will be tabled. The next discussion item is efficient officer reports. Orion, if you want to, take the floor, go ahead.
All right, so I mean, this has become a little bit less pronounced now that we're on Zoom, but there's two things that we can kind of improve with the officer reports. One of the issues with the officer reports is that we say a lot of different things, and if everyone else like isn't able to take notes in time, then it's hard to like catch all the dates and times and everything, which we do get like the next week or so with the meeting minutes, but by then those events might have passed already. And the other thing about the officer reports is the amount of time that they take up, because there's like 15 of us plus the administrators, and so that adds up for a good amount of time. I think today I just like measured the time for one of the officer reports just randomly, and it took 3 minutes and 53 seconds. So you multiply, I mean, a lot of the officer reports today were very short, but you can get the idea that you multiply that by 15, 16, 17 people, and it's a good chunk of time. So there's couple of things that we can do about that. One of which is that, I mean, this should be like a discussion of like possible approaches. So, you know, not limited to just the couple things that I'm gonna bring up right now, but, you know, something along these lines. One approach would be to do a lot of these reports are pre-written, and a lot of us will just read the officer report at the meeting. And at that rate, it would be easier on everyone because, you know, it takes time for you to read something. And so like, I don't need you to read it to me. I could just read it myself. One possibility is we could just, everyone just sends in their written officer reports, and those are distributed to the audience at the meeting, and posted on the website or something. And then we don't actually do an officer report during the meeting. Couple other options would just be to, like, you know, try to limit the time of the officer reports, or potentially have the officer reports time be used for asking questions in response to the things that have been written. Anyway, just wanted to get your all thoughts on that. And yeah, what do you think?
Go ahead, Naomi.
I have a few thoughts on the things that you brought up. I know that you had timed one officer's officer reports. And again, I want to challenge you in saying that these officers are like, or that these reports are like lengthy and that they're not necessary. It seems like you're implying that the words that we're saying are not useful to the student body. Again, officer reports are meant to inform the general body. We have members of the public here that, you know, represent like the Daily Bruin, who are supposed to be getting what we're saying during these meetings. And I agree with you. We can very much so use the meeting option, the meeting minute notes, as an option to like send in our officer reports, which is something that council has done in the past. And I know that I personally haven't done as much. But to say that we shouldn't share what's going on in our office, if I was the one who took 3 minutes today to explain everything that my office is doing, I think it's completely valid, because I feel like the work that we do is valid and it's useful to the student body. I would also say that meetings are recorded for people who can't make it, and I would not feel comfortable just handing out my officer report to the people that are in the audience, because again, USAC meetings are not accessible. They're at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday and they go till 12 a.m. sometimes. So I don't feel comfortable just handing things out. I appreciate and I like second your thoughts that our meetings are very lengthy. And that's not healthy for any of us. It's quite literally exploitation in some aspects, but I don't think that the problem is the officer reports. I actually think that part of the problem can be traced back to having a discussion like this. That's just, in my opinion, not necessary.
Well, back on accessibility, I think it would be more accessible for students if it's just like written and like posted, because otherwise they do have to, yes, the lecture, I mean, the thing is recorded, but it takes a lot more time to go through the video and like find the officer reports and then listen to the officer reports, versus being able to just like, you know, go to the website, click on it, pull it up, and then just like read it. So in terms of like, because what we're going to say, we already know what we're going to say. I'm not saying it's not important that we say it, but I'm just like referring to the efficiency with which we deliver it.
I do think for a good, sorry if I cut off someone, I do think for a good amount of our meetings throughout the year, we have tried to keep officer reports for 2 minutes. well, and I think council members have done a good job in doing that. And in terms of like writing down these officer reports and updates, I agree. I mean, it's a wise decision, but I do think that we're already doing that through our social media pages. So yeah. Sorry for the person that I cut off. Go ahead.
Well, I'll be the first to support efforts to not have the meetings go till and beyond midnight on a regular basis, so you can all sleep and study and do all those important things. I want to point out that if the reports are not given verbally during the meeting, they cannot be in the minutes. The minutes can only reflect what is actually said in the meeting.
I think that it's fine if they're not in the minutes. We can just put them elsewhere on the website. And I think students are much better at finding those kinds of things on the website than.
But I think I do think though it's important that they're put in the minutes and read into the minutes, because students in the future actually look back in the minutes to see what are the things that council members have discussed.
Well, it could be
Liam,
published
go ahead.
like alongside the minute, or not alongside, but just in the same area of the website as the minutes. So like you see the minutes for the day on the website, and like next to it, you see the officer reports for the day or something like that.
One thing I will bring up though, in terms of accessibility, I think a much better solution, and I mean this would be left to another council, but another really important solution I think we found by this unfortunate circumstance that we're in is that it seems like by having a meeting on Zoom or some like not just like the USAC live stream, but by having it here, we've had a lot of participants on all of our calls. So we might want to encourage that to go forward even after this is all over.
Well, I think part of that is because the audio quality is a lot better with this setup, because we all have our own individual mics.
Okay,
Okay.
Lily is next.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's in our bylaws that we have to record the minutes like properly, like we have to have our officer reports in the minutes. Like they can't just not be in the minutes.
I do think there is somewhere in the bylaws where people have to give an in-person officer report. I think that's one of the mandated responsibilities as of now.
Well, if it's in the bylaws, we can change it if we need to. But I mean,
Change the bylaws?
Send it to CRC.
right. I mean, that would be a whole CRC thing, but if you think it's worth it, we could proceed in that direction.
I don't think any
Okay,
of them could
everyone,
like that.
let's follow the queue, please. Let's follow the queue. Lalo, you're next.
I know this was supposed to be about ensuring efficiency, and I think the proposal about having a separate section within the USAC website to put our officer reports is not efficient. It creates more work for the USAC webmaster, and I am not about to create more work for someone when we already have a way to do it.
Okay, Joanna.
I'd like to motion to move on from this topic.
Second.
Isabel had something to say.
Isabel did have something to say.
Isabel and Shahama.
Well, it was seconded.
That's okay.
No, I feel bad. Go ahead, Isabel.
Well, the thing is, like, I feel okay. I'm gonna go back to a meeting a couple weeks ago, like at the beginning of winter quarter, when people were upset that like motion, like once it gets seconded, like you have to like vote on it and just move on. Like people were very against me like trying to stop it. So I would prefer if we follow those rules, given that that's what's been happened in the past, and I don't want it to be only when it's convenient for people to like not do those things.
Wait, before we do take a vote on moving on, I just want to read Jessica's comment. So she said, if the concern is about making events public / posted for students to attend, I want to give a friendly reminder that the ASUCLA app is available to you to post any event your office is holding, whether it is Ackerman or Kirkhoff or elsewhere, that might be helpful for students as opposed to putting it on the USAC website. Okay, thank you for that comment, but since it was seconded, you know what? This is a democracy after all. Let's go ahead and vote. Okay, IVP, moving on, yes. EVP?
Yes.
Gen Rep 1?
Yes.
Gen Rep 2?
Well, I think I'm going to be in the minority here, but no.
Gen Rep 3?
Abstain.
AC? Wait, what? No?
No.
Okay, no. Okay, CSC?
Abstain.
Okay. Jack's not here. Fax?
Yes.
Okay. Transfer rep?
Yes.
Okay. ISR?
Abstain.
Okay. 5 to 1 to 3. No. Oh my God. It's 5 to 1 to 4. We're moving on.
I think it was 2.
Yeah, I think there was.
Okay, 2.
I
It
never
was
got to
2.
vote, but I also vote yes this time.
Okay. 62 to 3.
Wait.
We're moving on.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, we're moving on. Okay. So petition to change UCLA's Latin honors. Isabel.
Yes. Hello. So I have invited. Is she still here? Are you still here? Yes. Okay. I've invited Skylar back into the meeting. She is the one who wrote this petition, and she came to me hoping that USAC would endorse it. So I'm just gonna, if it's okay with the chair, I'm gonna defer my time to Skylar so she can talk a little bit more about it and why she wrote it. And you should all have been sent the link to it, but if you don't have it, I'll send it again. Kim?
Oh, I do not have it. I'm so sorry.
Is it okay if I defer? Okay. But is it okay if I defer to Skylar?
Oh yeah, good.
Okay, cool.
So part of why I wrote this, there was like a lot of talk about requirements, obviously for spring quarter and for graduation. And I'm currently an honors college student, so Latin honors has always kind of been in the back of my mind. And it has been attainable for me to an extent, but obviously they changed the GPA requirements this year to be higher than they've ever been before, which makes it that even less students will get it this year. And I just think it's unrealistic to raise these standards given the impact that COVID-19 is having on this academic community, as a lot of people are going to struggle. If they choose to do pass, no pass, obviously that does relieve some stress. But if you're like me and you're a graduating senior whose department requires graded classes for certain requirements, I don't have the option to do that. So I'm sitting with the dilemma of like, I need to get an A in a class to get Latin honors, and that's a lot of stress. But something that was mentioned by one of my friends was that like you have to maintain an A minus like overall academic GPA. Like you can't really have much wiggle room in your classes. And I know like I could have done a lot better in my classes this last quarter, especially in my finals, because my finals were week 10, as a lot of communication major finals are. And my final was moved online like the day before the final. So I really struggled with it. I get accommodations, but even with that, I was like sitting there staring at it like I can't complete this at all. I don't know how I'm going to pass this class. So a lot of people suffered in winter. A lot of my friends suffered academically in winter due to these sudden changes. A lot of people had to move. A lot of people are either stuck in Westwood or trying to get out of their rent. And I feel like at least lowering these requirements to what they were last year and making them a little bit more lenient would help more students achieve Latin honors. And I know it's something little, but when you have, you know, these great graduating students of the class of 2020 who could have gotten it, but they're just that much off, or those who are already deserving of those honors to just kind of secure that they will be receiving it, I think it's only fair to revert them to last year. And they've been continuously raised. I've been doing a lot of research into what UCLA's Latin honors requirements have been, and I found one from like 2000 where like Latin honors requirements were like so much easier, as low as 3.6 for Latin honors. And I even looked as well into other UCs and how they do theirs. And most other UCs have the top 12% roughly getting Latin honors, but still having more lenient requirements for that top 12% versus UCLA, which is top 20. And just to compare, UCSB is the only other UC with the top 20% getting, like, they call it high honors. And their top 20% for the College of Letters and Sciences is a 3.59 to a 3.76. Ours currently is or last year, cum laude was a 3.729. So it's little tiny adjustments that will help. I think it's only fair for graduating seniors, and I know it's a little adjustment, but I tried the petition out in several different ways. I tried changing it to 25% instead of the top 20%. Got a lot of hate for that because people were like, well, that's making too many people eligible. So from everything I've heard, a lot of people would like to move towards supporting having it be last year's requirements instead of this year's. And someone even mentioned possibly freezing the requirements because the schools increase them every year. And they say the top 20%, but there's no way to actually calculate if that's who the people are actually getting it, are that top 20% of graduating students. So I love your guys' support. I don't know where this is gonna go. I think it is realistic. I would even say that I'd want to lower the requirements more, but I think like the general consensus from everyone I talked to was to move in a direction where they were the same requirements as last year. And yeah, I don't know what else, if anyone has questions or anything.
Does anyone know as to why it increases each year? Is there some sort of like logic to that?
The logic, from what I've heard, and it's kind of weird, is that they calculate it actually off of the previous year's standards. So, like this year's top 20%, I say like with quotation marks because, like I said, there's no way to exactly calculate it, is actually based off of last year's top 20%. Or so I've heard.
It's also possible that, like, over time, if there's grade inflation, that like the standard for what the top percentages increases. So it's not constant from year to year. If you look at like grades overall at universities around the country, grades have gone up in the past 15 to 20 years on average. So it makes sense that the well, not the Latin honors requirement would increase as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Naomi? Is she there?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. But I just wanted to know, like, what exactly are you asking for council to do?
Just to support the petition. It's gotten like 1,000 views, but only 105 signatures. And so, like, anything I can do to try and give this to the attention of the academic senate. My only real connection is Greek life because I'm the president of Multi-Interest Greek Council. And so my like one academic person is I think it's Vice Chancellor Monroe Gordon. And I've thought about reaching out to him about this, but I don't know what kind of like influence he has. And I know that you guys have a much better like platform for reaching out to academic senate for these types of things.
This is something where the individuals you'd want to reach out to would be Pat Turner and the undergraduate council chair of the academic senate.
And you can find that on the Senate website. I can also send her email in this chat, this open chat. Her name is Adriana Galvan.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm gonna hand it off to Isabel as to what exactly you want us to do for this particular agenda item.
Yeah, so I had originally put it on here as an action item vote if we wanted to vote to formally like endorse or support this petition. But like ultimately it is up to Skylar, who's the author of the petition, if like you want us to like just give you the access and the resources to go ahead with it, or like actually vote to support it as the council.
I feel like supporting it as a council would do a lot just because I'm struggling to like get the word out there about the petition and what it means, because I have had to take down several posts for getting a lot of hate. I think there's just some like misinformation about Latin honors, and I even did a lot of research because I'm like, I don't want to be, you know, saying things or trying to change something that I know that I couldn't change or that maybe wouldn't make sense to everybody. But I'm fine with like whatever you guys decide. I would love the resources. I'm gonna fight for this because it's something that I believe in, and a lot of people who are my friends or I've just kind of like come to know because of being at UCLA also really support. And I really don't like giving up on things, especially when I feel like there's a purpose behind it that's going to help a lot of students.
Go ahead, Naomi.
Yeah, I also again like don't mind connecting you to these resources and like helping you like elevate your voice and whatnot. I will say, like, if we were to vote on this, I'm not sure how I would vote on this because this seems to be helping like a very, very small like minority of students. And I just looked up the requirements too, and I do think it's crazy. Like they changed it to, I mean, they upped it by 0.010, which is that's a lot if you really like if you're into like monitoring your GPA. I'm just not sure like if this would be my like primary concern in advocating. Like I feel like I've been requested a lot to help with like things like pass no pass and like helping departments change like the requirements to pass no pass, and I feel like that is a lot more pressing and it affects a lot more students, especially when we're talking about how the COVID-19 situation adversely affects those student populations. So I also like feel I'm so sorry that that's happening to you, that you're getting a lot of hate. That's not right in any sense. Like you're literally just advocating, you know, for what you believe in. And like you said, it's valuable. But I would just also like really take into consideration like what folks are saying and take time away from being like from advocating for this if you need to, if it's like severely affecting you, because people are mean sometimes.
It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, and I think the resources would be great. Because like I don't want to make your meeting too long. And I think that the resources might actually be more helpful than a vote. Personally, I think Latin honors requirements right now are a bit ridiculous because they're so high. They're higher than any other UC other than Berkeley, but their whole honor system is kind of weird because they also have really bad grade inflation. So I know it's helping only a minority of students, but I think it's hard because like that's my circle of people that it's affecting. But probably for now, I'd say the resources would be the most helpful. And yeah.
I think that we as council members could still individually like sign on to the petition, but I guess from what I'm hearing is like not everyone is comfortable as like endorsing it as a whole. But again, like each council or like each offices or like officers could still sign on to it. And we do have the link too. Yeah, so any last minute thoughts? If not, thank you so much for coming into tonight's meeting, Skylar, and we've appreciated the amount of work that you put into this petition.
Thank you, and thank you guys for hearing me out.
I put in the emails too in the chat.
Yeah, I saw them just now. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Skylar. Okay, so moving on to the next item, extending drop deadlines. Brandon?
Yeah, hi everyone. I don't want this to take too long, but I do think it's important to bring back on. So we got the response from the Academic Senate last week. Out of everything we advocated for, at least is the way I read the letter, there still seemed to be some hope on the drop deadline issue. I think it's one of the most important ones besides the grading system, which I think frustrated all of us, that we continue to advocate on in whatever way we can, especially at administration. I'd like to hear what Naomi thinks about this as well, because obviously this is under the definitely a academic issue. But I do think in terms of like providing students some sort of like even the sentiment that the chair of the academic senate expressed in the letter, in providing students like the ability to make choices about their academic future. That's the easiest thing they could do to make sure that students remain enrolled in the university if unpredictable things happen this quarter. I think the worst thing, we were all talking about how disappointing it would be if students were forced to withdraw as a result of these circumstances, and the university has taken no steps at all to stop that from happening. The pass no pass solution they offered is not a solution at all, in my opinion. But the drop deadline is the one thing that I think can go a really long way in helping to mitigate at least the fact that they didn't change the grading system. So now I'd like to open it up to everybody else and to hear your all thoughts. Isabel.
Hello. I actually got a message about that today. Someone asking me when the drop deadline was and if it had been changed. So I think I agree with you that it would be really helpful for students to be able to drop any class without like a transcript notation. Like ideally up until the end of the quarter, but like at the very least, like an extension to maybe like after midterms, like after like week 5 or 6 or something like that.
Also the fees. That's another big concern I have. As you get later on in the quarter, the fees can really add up and can be quite unreasonable. And if you're thinking about under normal circumstances, I think it's like $40 or $50 to drop a class after like week 6. But I don't know. There's a week issue and then there's $30. Thank you, Naomi. whatever it is, it's like that's it's a good amount of money just for a class change, let alone in the middle of a pandemic and like one of the biggest recessions. It looks like with the highest unemployment since the Great Depression in the 1930s. Like the fact that the university has not done anything about it really pisses me off. But yeah.
So from what I know is that other UCs have extended the drop deadline until the end of week 10, and they're also not charging for it. Um, yeah, because I met up with the other internal vice presidents of the other UCs last week, and this is something that they made happen, and hopefully it could also happen at UCLA. Yeah.
Yeah, I also just wanted to say too, like, I think after last week, a lot of us were just really disappointed with the response that we got. I know Lily and I had begun editing the letter that we had already sent to admin and Senate, and we're thinking that council should like collectively resend the same version of the demands that we're asking, specifically like asking for the pass no pass and for the drop deadline. And send it to the deans, because as you guys remember in the letter, in the response that they sent us, this no longer is like an academic senate thing. It becomes like a college thing. So like it would have to go to like TFT, the engineering school, College of Letters and Sciences. So I feel like maybe sending it to the deans might be a better ask. And I also was telling Lily too that it might be beneficial for us to get a list of the departments who have done the pass no pass, so that way we can publicize it to the student body and making sure that they know that departments are changing these requirements. And Lily had mentioned like making it like an ongoing document just in case like departments later on choose to do this, because again, like pass no pass deadline is week 6, so we have some wiggle room to like really extend that and to make sure that like departments change it. And then the drop deadline, of course, like is week 4. So that one, I mean, if we want to work on that, we would really want to do soon, so that way we can like inform the student body in a fast manner, so that way they can make that decision if they needed to. So I don't know what your guys' feelings are on resending the letter. Lily and I have like the body of it already done. I can like send out a copy of it to council, and we can like maybe look at it. I don't know.
One thing to note also is that USC approved basically our system that we came up with last week.
For the fee, oh, go ahead, Naomi.
I was just gonna say one thing. I think, and I would think like maybe the misstep that we had was implementing the no record, because there's currently like not a no record option in our grading scale. So I feel like it was easy to shoot down that proposal for that reason. And I don't know if we were like thinking of redoing it. I don't know. I haven't seen USC's. I also heard that too from Robert. But yeah, I just wanted to include that.
Yeah, for the fees portion, that was actually like before COVID-19, all that was like one of the platforms I ran on, like getting those fees like removed altogether. So I've done some of that like research and all that. And like we had a meeting set up with like Vice Provost Pat Turner about it, but it was during week 10. And as y'all know, shit hit the fan week 10. So that meeting was canceled. But I still have all that like information and stuff that my staff and I gathered. So if y'all move forward with that, I can like share that with y'all so we can like try and address the fee situation as well.
Yeah, so how does council members feel about moving forward with this? Do we want to like like help out Naomi and Lily with the letter and resend it? Thoughts, Isabel?
Yeah, I think it would be a great idea to work on it, like redraft it, resend it, and then advocate for like extending the drop deadline and removing the fees, as well as like maybe like advocating for the fees to be permanently removed, or like at least lowered. But yeah, I'm on board. I'm willing to help.
and they.
Brandon?
Oh, I think
Shama hasn't spoken yet.
Oh, sorry. Shama?
Yeah, I also just want to say that I'm bored and I'm on board and I'm willing to like help with that and also like still highlight to the departments how like both out of state and international have like time differences and having like um class, especially mandatory attendance classes and like exams in very short 2 to 3 hour time frames can be very, very challenging for a lot of students. So yeah, that was also something I wanted to highlight. So yeah, I'm down to work on all of those with you all, Naomi.
Naomi, a couple of additions that we could discuss based on like things that have come up since then. Besides the stuff that obviously like probably is irrelevant at this point, like the spring break thing. There's also the issue I've run into where certain professors have said they're going to be grading off like where your eyes are positioned on the video, and like I found it absurd, and I'm going to write an email like I take notes on paper, for example, so like I will not be looking at the screen, but like that seems like a severe privacy issue. If I don't know how he would track that, but I've heard various things like this where professors want to figure out a way how to grade participation, but there is a line where like it's unreasonable to like do that type of thing, or or another one. So there's a privacy issue. There's also the issue of I'm forgetting shit. That I'll remember it later probably because it's sort of late now. But I'll send you the other things that have come up. Oh, I would include, by the way, that the disease isn't going to be peaking till week 5 or 6 of like the new models have come out since we last wrote the letter, and they show that California's disease rate will probably peak late in April, early May, right around midterms, and when students' academic performance is most being tested. So once again, like the data is not supporting what we heard in the letter about somehow not changing the system keeps student choice. I didn't really get that. The whole point of like the compromise we made was to like maximize it. And right now I think we have a big issue where we're going to see a lot of people withdrawing mid-quarter if something doesn't change.
Yeah, I was going to mention too, like I sent the letter in the group chat, so I don't know like when you all want to work on it, if that's like something you guys want to do like on the council meeting now, or I know like some folks, we had hopped on a meeting call separately from here and we like wrote the letter together so that way we can add those additions. I know like Lily and I had added a few things and just had tweaked some things to reflect like the changes. And again, I think we should like all do this together collectively. Yeah, okay, we probably shouldn't do it tonight, but we can do it like on a separate group call tomorrow or something. I think
Do you have a timeline for when you want to send it? Because I was thinking, yeah, like hop on a call sometime this week and then present it to council next week and then vote on it.
I mean, well, because the first letter, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not sure if we presented it at council. The first letter so we wrote 2 letters.
We presented the letter on academic inequity at council. We did not present I believe the finals letter did not come at council.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe even doing this, trying to get it out by this week and doing like the roll call votes that we did last time, just as like it would just be a council member signing on to it, just as we did last time, just because week 2, that's the deadline for impacted classes, and I don't know that, so we might want to give ourselves some wiggle room. I'm thinking we should the latest send it out by Friday.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, one other issue. Sorry, this just came to me. I've also had professors, and I have email evidence of this, who have said if you cannot attend lectures at the time the course is offered, and you cannot be on a computer, you should drop the class, and I advise you not to take it right now, which is to me very, very, very problematic because of the international student issue. I've literally had people in my classes who are in class at 2 in the morning local time for them, or 3 in the morning, and they're like, they say, and they're completely correct, how am I supposed to participate in a class where I'm sleepwalk? I'm literally just forcing myself to be awake because my local time doesn't account for Pacific Standard Time. So I mean, I know we can't force professors to record lectures, but uh having no rules as to you, maybe you can't record a lecture, but you cannot penalize a student for their geographic location.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that UCSD, their classes don't have mandatory attendance. That's something that their academic senate told professors to not have classes have mandatory attendance. I don't know if that's something that we could do for UCLA, but go ahead, Shama.
The demands.
I was just saying, based on what Brandon said, I've been working with my office and they've come up with some suggestions. So probably encouraging professors to not have mandatory attendance, and also encouraging professors to allow students the flexibility to attend any discussion, so that they could possibly attend maybe an 8 a.m. discussion, so it's 8 p.m. back home instead of a 4 p.m. discussion when it would be 4 a.m. So having that kind of flexibility could also be another option. And I also think we can just work more on this when we're writing the letter.
Yeah. Does anyone else have last minute thoughts and concerns?
Is Dr. Geller on the call?
Wait, what?
Dr. Geller on the call?
Dr. Geller?
I had a question.
Yeah.
I had a question about the Office of Ombuds. Do you know if they're still in this quarter?
There should still be ombuds available this quarter. They're probably working remotely. I would suggest checking their website and seeing what it says about how to contact them.
Okay. So usually sometimes when students with professors, I usually refer them either to the dean's office or the Office of Ombuds services, and they're supposed to also help mitigate those resources too. So in addition, while we're working on this end, we can direct students to those resources now. I'll also send that in the group chat so that way y'all have it.
Cool. Yeah, maybe yeah, just hop on a call tomorrow to edit the letter. If everyone's fine with that.
Sounds good.
Okay. Cool. So can we move on from this discussion? Yeah. Okay. Okay, the last thing on the agenda is extending the virtual meetings throughout spring quarter. Yeah, there's no way we could meet all together personally. Believe me, I would want that. It's last quarter of my senior year. I guess here we are. So if someone could just motion and then we could approve it.
Someone put a 1.
Isabel has
okay, Isabel.
It's me. I just wanted to reiterate. I didn't get to say my statement earlier because we voted, but I think it's relevant now. I just wanted to challenge the idea that Zoom meetings are more accessible Then in-person meetings, because like obviously both of them have their own struggles, but like I think a Zoom meeting is more accessible for someone who already has like good Wi-Fi and like a computer or like some type of technology to access the meeting. And like you know like we all saw how difficult it was for me personally to interact with this meeting when I was at home. So like I think that just limits like accessibility in a different way for like a different subset of people. And like if we ever voted to make Zoom meetings or like online meetings the standard, I would definitely vote no. But I will be voting yes to extend this for the rest of spring quarter. And that's all I wanted to say on that.
Can I just provide clarification? What I meant when I said that was that first of all, I was going off the number of participants, and it was by far more than any meeting we've had separately. But it would be in addition to like an in-person meeting. So we would meet in person because I agree with you. For certain people, it is more accessible and like it's really important. But for people who can't, for one reason or another, can't make it to the in-person meeting, having the Zoom meeting in addition to that, I think provides a really high quality platform for like people who cannot come in person for one reason or another. But
I have a quick question. I don't know if Dr. Geller could provide clarity. Are we voting for all of spring quarter? Because I don't know if we can make it for next year's or for next council.
You actually can take that vote, because although you won't be in office at the end of the term, you've already been told that classes will remain virtual, and you know that there will be students who won't be present on campus.
Okay, just wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, in terms of having Zoom for the future council meetings, I think that's something that the next set of council should definitely take in consideration. Yeah, Isabel?
Can I motion?
Okay, yeah.
Is that okay? I didn't mean to, if you want to finish your thought.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Okay. I motion to move all USA Council meetings online for the remainder of,
No, I was gonna second. You're good.
okay, for the remainder of spring quarter 2020.
I second.
Okay, cool. Isabel motions, Lalo seconds. We're gonna go down the line. Okay, internal vice president, yes. EVP?
Yes.
Gen Rep 1?
Yes.
Gen Rep 2?
Yes.
Gen Rep 3?
yes.
AC? AC?
Sorry, I said yes.
CEC?
Yes.
CSC?
Yes.
FAC?
Yes.
Transfer Rep?
Yes.
ISR?
Yes.
ISR?
Yes. Sorry.
Okay,
Yes.
cool. With 11 to 0 vote, we are moving our meetings virtually to Zoom throughout the rest of the quarter. Okay, that is all for tonight. Good job, everyone. We got through it in less than 3 hours and 30 minutes. Yeah, so I adjourned this meeting at 10:24 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
Not Pacific Standard Time.
Okay.